like to call this Monday, July 17th County Commission to order. Commissioners, please go to the board and register your attendance. Present. We're going to have the prayer by Commissioner Val, but I would like to say, first of all, his father-in-law passed away, and Houston Carroll, and he was the founding member of the Bryceville Volunteer Fire Department, and he was also the pastor of Hope Church in Rocky Top. So I see that it's more than fitting for Mr. Commissioner Val to do the prayer for us today, and we're sorry to hear that. And Commissioner Meade will do the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for all your many blessings. We thank you, Lord, most of all for our salvation tonight. Father, we thank you for people you send to us in our lives to lead us, to guide us. And we pray, Father, you give us wisdom to follow those that are right, Lord, to learn from them, to follow the path that they've set. Please forgive us of our sins. Be with us tonight, Lord, as we try to do the business of the county. Be with each member's heart, our mind, Father, to do what's right. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in salute to our flag. Hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now it's time for appearance of citizens. This is a chance for anyone that wants to speak 3 minutes on anything that is not on the agenda. Does anyone like to speak? Yes, sir. Could you state your name, please?
My name's Joe Gillum. I'm with the Medford Volunteer Fire Department, and I'm here on behalf of the engines that's supposed to be bought yearly. We've been trying for years to get ours, and it seems like it's going from year to year. And I was just wondering what the deal is, when we can expect to get one, or if we can. I mean, you know, we've went into preparations, we've borrowed money, to build a building, and we've got other expenses to go on, and we'd just like to know, you know, are we going to be able to get one?
When are the, yes, sir.
Could our finance director come up and tell us about the money that's been appropriated and
So in this year's, the 17-18 fiscal year's budget, there's $117,000 that's been appropriated. That's for the second half of the truck, for the Oak Ridge truck that Commission approved the purchase of this time last year. So the $117,000 from last year's budget and another $117,000 from this year's budget has already been earmarked for the Oak Ridge truck. I don't have my budget notes with me, but I want to say Medford may be the next on the list, but don't hold me to that because it's written in the resolution as far as who goes in what order. Does that answer your question?
yeah, so
So it would be the 18-19 and 19-20, if everything stays the same. It would be after this fiscal year, then the $117,000 per year for the next 2 fiscal years would go to the purchase of the next piece of equipment in the county for whatever fire department.
did we skip 1 year at some point?
Not
and
immediate-
appropriate the money?
I researched it pretty extensively when it came up in the budget committee months ago. And it's following the pattern of every 2 years, the appropriation has been staying the same, but 2 fiscal years worth go to purchase 1 truck.
Right.
I think it was Marlowe that was before, was it Marlowe that was before Oak Ridge, maybe? I don't have my notes in front of me.
Okay, so it's going to be 2019, 20 fiscal year before Medford would get a truck.
If they're next.
Yeah, if they're next, which
I think they are
I'm pretty sure they
next.
are next, but
Right, so the process, last year, when it was approved for Oak Ridge, that was for them to go out and bid the truck, start building the truck. We have not expended the funds from last fiscal year or for this fiscal year, but they're set aside for Oak Ridge's truck. So I haven't written a check yet.
do you know if Oak Ridge has got their truck yet?
No, they get, Oak Ridge gets theirs approximately in September. Chief Hurley is here.
I think that may be a year off because last July is when you appropriated the second piece of our truck. Because we think that there was some confusion over the truck appropriation, so we had to delay the purchase of our truck for a year because you had given us half of the money the year before, but we couldn't drop the purchase order until the second fiscal year, which was last July 1st, and you approved that second half last July 1st, so then we dropped the purchase order later that year. It'll be delivered in August or September, but we thought that this year it was going to go back to full funding, so that Medford picked up their truck this year.
Well, it's obvious we're not prepared with paperwork, because this is just more or less something for the citizens to tell us, and it's not really a question and answer time, but
I think
what's the commission want to do?
I think the confusion might have been that the entire amount of money was appropriated, but for some reason, it was split between Oak Ridge and Medford this year, but I'm not sure.
No, that's not the way it worked. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, some of the confusion comes in because we done a resolution, and we talked about this last year, and I think even the mayor was in support of that, about going back to funding every year. And the resolution came out of Fire Commission, and this body approved it. But in the budget process, because everybody knows I went to budget and talked about it in operations, that we need to fund this, go back to every year. And we talked about where we spent money in other places where we should have been spending it for our fire trucks. But what happened is because of all the money that was spent on several things last year, is we fell short. And I think at the time, the budget chairman decided or made a recommendation to go back to every 2 years. I didn't agree with that, and I didn't vote for it. But we also talked about that if EMS gets the big lump sum of money, is that money would, a portion of that money would go back to get this thing caught back up, to get it on track where it's every year. So that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's all the discussion that we've had. Thank you.
I'd like to request that we put this, the topic itself for tonight, to discuss it, under old business, if we could, to discuss it further.
What about operations?
No, I'm asking
Well,
for.
there's no paperwork that we can give them to tell them to answer the
I'm
questions.
not
that you're
saying
asking.
that we have to come to a conclusion this evening, but this room is full of firefighters. And I've made it quite clear, when Mr. Sweet came up and said he wanted an increase for the EMS department, this was just a couple of months ago, I reminded him and everyone else, the fire department needs equipment. People tend to forget how much it costs to outfit one person from head to toe. A truck is an essential part of their equipment. And if there's an accident out on one of the roads, it doesn't mean that someone in that specific vicinity is going to show up. They all keep their ears open for it. And they're here tonight to tell you that they provide mutual aid. They're in a position, they need these trucks. And it's only fair to let them have an opportunity to speak further.
Commissioner Fritz.
Mr. Chairman, I'm the one that initially started the resolution, and the resolution was meant to be every year. But due to budget constraints and everything like that, it got pushed back to every 2 years. During the budget process this year, we're close to $900,000 behind, almost. out. So, I mean, that's how far behind. Unless we get the money from the state with the EMS, unfortunately, there is nothing we can do this year unless that money comes in. And this is not on the agenda, and there's nothing we can do tonight, and there's nothing we're supposed to be able to do unless things that come before the commission is things that's supposed to be ready for us to vote on tonight. And so if it's not, then it needs to be deferred to a committee and addressed in committee, and then come back to the commission where the commission then can take action. But the only things ready for us to vote on is supposed to come before the full commission. That's why we're here 4.5, 5 hours every night, because we're not following our rules. And there's nothing we can do tonight, and there's nothing at all we can do tonight.
Okay, with that being said, then fine. Let's let it go to operations. Please. Sure, I'd like to make a motion.
Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And this would be for the August meeting,
For the
correct?
next meeting, yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Second Monday in August.
Second Monday in August.
Good evening, I'm Scott Hackler, I'm with the Norris Volunteer Fire Department. One thing I want to add to the discussion is the equipment money that is continued in the budget is one thing, but the pumper purchase funds contribute to, in large part, to our ISO rating, the Insurance Services Office. If we fall too far behind, then each homeowner in the county is going to start paying extra because our ISO scores decrease. And that's even more, a bigger problem for the commercial business owners, where they have to pay more as well. So face value one year or another, but once you start accumulating this deficit and we get farther behind, each truck needs to be replaced at least every 25 years. And it's not one truck per department. Most departments have at least two, because part of that score is to have a reserve truck. So if we let this linger too long, you will be in such a deficit, it will be very difficult to pull back out. It won't just be one truck this year, it'll be several. And then by the time that happens, it'll take years to recover that ISO score, and the homeowners are going to have to pay for that in the meantime, and we would like to prevent that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Bearden?
Hello, I'm Russell Bearden. I'm the HR director here at Anderson County. I'm not a citizen, but what I have to say is no less important. If I'd ask you what the jewels of Anderson County would be, what would you say? I know you're up here thinking I'm touting the HR department again, but I'm not. I want to talk about Anderson County parks. These parks are absolutely gorgeous. I had a friend of mine who took some pictures and sent them to me the other day as they were boating. And they're a longtime resident of Anderson County, and they were talking about how beautiful these parks are. And they are our jewels. And they said that in the last couple of years, they've noticed a difference of how they've been kept up and how they've been run. That's important to me. And these parks, you should visit them if you haven't. And I'd give that praise to three things. God, number one, for putting it here. Toby Bromlett and his crew for keeping it up, and the leadership of that conservation board. That conservation board is made up of not ordinary citizens. That conservation board is made up of very hard-working citizens who've given their time under the leadership of Phil Warfield here, have made a difference in those parks. I hope when you're thinking about who you're appointing to this conservation board, that you'll remember that. Don't do it on the guise of a political agenda. Do it on people who love those parks and who want to bring it forward. I please ask you, keep that in mind when you're considering that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Commissioner Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't look at my screen.
It's okay. We have a group of two groups here from the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce. So it's a pleasure to have with us our 2017 class of leadership Anderson County. If you will please stand. There's 10 or 12 of them. Thank you. Those are our future leaders of this county, and we appreciate everyone coming here. Tomorrow's County Government Day, so we'll try to teach them county government in about 6 hours. So, anyhow, moving on. Also, we have with us our Government Relations Committee from the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce. If you would, please stand, and then Chairman Heatherly would like to say a few words after that. Stand, please, members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good evening. Again, I'm Steve Heatherly. I'm with the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce. We have two things on our agenda here this evening. None of it has to do with asking you for anything. First of all, we want to thank you for your continued support of our chamber. I made a list on the way over here of all the things that we're involved in as a result of, in large part, your support. Economic development, tourism, continuing to reach out to get better broadband, various legislative initiative, retail recruitment, housing, workforce development, economic development, membership, infrastructure improvements, leadership, youth leadership, education. Did I mention economic development? So we're able to do all those things with your support, and we want to thank you for that. We specifically want to thank you for your funding of our retail initiative. Know that every day Rick and his staff are working diligently to continue to recruit industry into our community. So with that, again, thank you, and we look forward to a continued relationship.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. I'd like to request that the school board be put onto the regular agenda, please.
Okay. They're at 6B right now, so we'll just leave them right there. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Regular agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Elections, resignation of Commissioner Owanski. So we don't have anything right there.
Second.
There was a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Nominating committee report by Chairman Alderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your microphone. Your microphone.
I think there's some discrepancies on the way things were done and handled. But anyway, I think what was done, a motion was made by Commissioner Hitchcock, seconded by Commissioner Meade, and passed to submit any and all resumes received before the county commission agenda deadline to full commission at July 17th meeting. There was some some discrepancies as to whether it was run in the paper in the Oak Ridger. I would like to confirm that Miss Annette had put it in. The lady at the Oak Ridger does not know what happened, fell through the cracks, whatever, but it was not in that edition of the paper.
Okay.
So therefore being, I would defer that we defer this for 30 days as far as the appointment.
Second.
Motion is second. Jay Yeager, is he here? He's outside.
I think we actually have by law 60 days.
Okay.
I don't think there's a
time period on it. I mean, there's a time period, but we're okay.
Yes, sir. The appointment, do you have anything to say as far as the order and the way that we've been doing this and
Yes,
how
sir.
we should do it?
I think I put this in an email out to everyone. The process that was utilized this time is inconsistent with what we've used numerous times in the past. The process that was utilized was simply a mistake. It was for vacancies on a board or a committee or something like that. The state statute in Tennessee, on point here, governs every aspect. We have to yield to the state statute of replacing an official, and that's what we're doing. It's real similar to replacing Rodney Archer. We're replacing a county commissioner. That wasn't done here. A couple things that trouble me about this process. The notification in the paper had a deadline, and I think everyone up here that's been through this before knows there is no deadline until the moment that seat is filled. You can take nominations from the floor the night of the appointment. The other thing is we had nobody submit an application before the deadline. It was not published in the Oak Ridger. District 8 is the vast majority of District 8 is in Oak Ridge, so it's only right to publish it in a newspaper of general circulation in Oak Ridge. But I think all of our goals here is to do it right, do it lawfully, and do it to where it's going to be valid, not subject to a legal challenge at some point in the future. But that's my advice. My advice is real simple. Let's put this on the agenda for August. I've sent out the notification to get this ball rolling again, and we'll take care of this issue in August. Now, for the meantime, we do have a true vacancy in office here. This is not just a mere absence. It's a true vacancy. So the majority vote count is reduced to 8. Okay, not 9. Any questions that I can take on this issue to help you with it?
Commissioner Hitchcock? Okay. Commissioner Creasy?
Yeah, and I agree with the comments of the law director. And I apologize for not being at the nomination committee, because I would have spoke on those same issues or those same points. And while I've got the mic, I'd like to recognize that we have 2 of the candidates in the audience with us, Mr. Varner and Mr. Mosby. They're attending the meeting tonight and observing, and so it's an opportunity for all of us to meet them and ask them questions, and if we wish to, if they're willing. Thank you.
Okay.
Could we get them to stand where I could recognize them?
Of the 2 that was mentioned? And you-
Mosby? And you? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think Jay needs to know that we had made that motion also to defer it for 30 days, but we had handled the previous one that way. Somebody had mentioned it going to nominating.
Right.
And the motion in nominating was to accept any and all for that night and from the floor. So it has been done before.
Right.
But it won't happen
You
again.
corrected it in nominating committee.
It won't happen again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we had a motion. Do we have a second to defer to August?
Second.
The last thing I want to add before you take a vote on that is there's no harm in having a recommended deadline, okay? Now, that's not a drop-dead deadline. And that would be more than likely the noon county commission agenda deadline, the Wednesday before the 3rd Monday. And the reason being, that gives all our county commissioners a chance to read the resumes, start developing questions to the candidates. But again, remember, that is not a deadline that anybody that applies afterwards, we can't consider. We have to consider nominations from the floor the night of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Elected officials, Dr. Parrott. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. It's always a pleasure to be at commission and talk about the great schools of Anderson County. Just a couple of things. Tomorrow night at the Anderson County Fair, Anderson County Schools will be giving away books. I think we've got over 1,000 books we're going to be giving away to any school-age children. And Clifford the Big Red Dog is going to show up. So if you got anybody that wants to come out. Also, just kind of a note on the Friday, the first day of school for students, that's August the 4th. That is a early out day. We will be running a Wednesday schedule on that Friday because the high schools just have the freshman day. So we'll be putting that in the paper and make sure everybody knows about that. Another exciting things that come out of about a 2-year task force on this Saturday will be our first teacher supply depot. We've had some commissioners, Ms. Scott and Mr. Warfield has worked on these things, and it's going to be an exciting time. We've probably got donations upward about $10,000 we're going to be giving away to teachers for Clinton City and Anderson County, so we're excited about that. We're ready. We have purchased with the money we set aside, our one-to-one, we've purchased enough for 9th and 10th grade schools right now. We're waiting on the budget and see where our money is and our designated, and we're really working to try to fund the other two grades, 11th and 12th grade. And other than that, I'll take any questions. You have
Any questions? Commissioner Scott?
Imagine that. Dr. Parrott, I simply want to express my thanks and my outpouring of gratitude that I have for you and everyone that's worked on the Teacher Supply Depot. I think it's a great opportunity for the teachers to keep some money in their pocket and allowing the community or the county itself to give back to those that are paying it forward. And I just want to say thank you so very much.
And you know, another thing this year with the county and the city schools, and in partnership with Oak Ridge City and with Campbell County, we will be having coupon books that are just, they're tailored for Anderson County, Campbell County. They've probably got 60 coupons. They still got the coupons from Knox County and from Gatlinburg and all that, and we'll be selling those. The schools will be selling those. And all the money, it costs about $2.50 to get everything done, but the other $7.50 stays at all the schools. We've had some of our schools plan on selling 3,000 of them, so we figured that if we have a good year, it may bring in over $100,000 to the schools that doesn't come out of taxpayers' money. And then the first time you use a coupon, it pays for itself, so we're excited about that. So things are going great.
Commissioner White?
Thanks, sir. Dr. Parrott, how about our attendance for this coming year?
Our attendance, we started the year out at 65, 55, and we ended at 65, 48. We were down about 7 or 8 students, and we're hoping that right now our projections are to be right at or above that this next year. So over the last 5 years, we've been dropping about 50 students a year. So this last year, we didn't drop any, so we're excited about that. Yep.
Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Parrott, sounds like a new season, right, coming up to school.
Yes.
I guess what I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about is how well Anderson County's doing in academics. It might be a good time for us to kind of recruit, and it might be a bad choice of words, but I don't think so. Let the folks listening know how important it has been for you, your administration, your staff, your school system, your teachers, about the importance of academics and where we stand in the state.
I think 2 good points on that. Last year, there's a ACT or College Ready benchmarks. They're in math, English, science, and reading. And over the years, we've really struggled to get students to complete that. Last year, our graduating class, we had 90 students that, if you've seen out in the county, it's called the Elite 100. And we were looking at both schools to have 100 students, 200 students. I'm excited to say this year, we're already, before school starts, over 90 students. So that's before we take the ACT in October. All the seniors will be taking the ACT again in October. The state's really worked with us. I think it's the October the 3rd. So that day, all of our seniors will take ACT, and then our juniors will take it again. So I think that's the thing. Another thing that's really exciting is our reading. We know in Anderson County sometimes we struggle on students, the reading comprehension. And Ms. Katrina Oakley, our Director of Federal Projects and Elementary Education, they started a Read to Be Ready grant with the state, and First Chance is what it's called. It's just a great way to teach reading. And this year, from our data, 100% of our kindergartners are leaving kindergarten on grade level in reading. Now, if you take away, there's probably about 22 students that have IEPs. We're working on that. But when you think about that, 100% of those students that are leaving kindergarten, that's amazing in itself. And I had to ask her that twice, but that is true. So, and we're looking, though, we still got some work to do. By the time we get to 5th grade, we're down to about 60%. So I think you're going to see some great strides. The TCAT that you all put investment in is, we're going to have a groundbreaking here in a couple of weeks. And that is so exciting that our students can do that. I mean, really and truly, it's just a great time to be in education in Anderson County, Tennessee. We got some great teachers on board, and it is amazing where our students go and where the 30-plus club we started a few years ago to have the people that make 30 on their ACT, and we've already got a lot of those before the school year even starts. So we're excited about that. So.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Parrott.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. County Mayor. Hello, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I only have one action item on the agenda and then a couple of things to notify you about. The action item is the Conservation Board appointments, and because some comments were made in the public comment section, I do want to address something, and that is a perception that possibly my appointments are hinged on a new animal facility. I have already discussed with the appointments that I personally have no intention of pursuing an animal shelter on any of the county-owned property that's currently designated as a park. There is another commissioner who has come up with a wonderful idea, and I've already met with that commissioner and another agency about getting some land donated. We had a tough fight on that vote for land for those 3 acres to 10 acres. But I don't think when we're going to go to the public and ask for donations in order to raise the money needed to build that facility, that being born in contention is a good way to get the project started. So I want to put that out there to you all. If you think that is part of the issue, I assure you it has nothing to do with it, and you have my commitment that that is not where I intend to put it. Again, it can't work if it doesn't have the overwhelming support of everyone on commission. So, that being said, those appointments are there before you. If you need me to read those are Mr. Earl
Yes, if you don't
Cagle,
mind.
who's already serving on the board, Ms. Brenda Courier, Ms. Brenda McCamey, now Courier, who's already serving on the board. It's been a long time. When she was in the budget office, she was assigned to the parks. Mr. Christopher Silver, who is a new individual who has a degree in ecology and environmental science, who came to me a couple of months ago. County Commissioner Chuck Fritz, whom you know well. And Ms. Christine Dixon, who used to be the head of the parks and operated the parks. She works well with Mr. Brummett, knows the guys there, and was very, very active in the grants, in pursuit of grants, when she actually was employed by the parks.
So, what's the will of the commission?
Make a motion to approve it.
Okay, Commissioner, we have a motion. Do we have a second for discussion?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Warfield.
Well, I was gonna make a motion before, and I already butted in before Commissioner Kingman had spoke up. I move that we vote on these individuals on an individual basis, not as a group, but as individuals.
Second. Already got a motion on the floor. Commissioner King, you okay with that?
Yeah. That's fine with me.
Commissioner White, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, to vote on them individually. Okay. Mr. Earl Cagle, term expiring December 2017. Have a motion to, okay, hold on just a sec. Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is, the current committee, are we replacing some folks, or, I was just trying to get my arms around who's on the committee now, and with these proposed members, who would not be on the committee?
Well, now there is, all were not appointed properly, so there are 5 vacancies on the committee.
So none of the current ones, I hear what you're saying, wasn't done properly, but
Right.
let's be clear, I mean, I don't think there was anything done underhanded, and nobody tried to do anything illegal. I think you may have found something that was
Sure.
TCA code, which you're pretty good at and studying, and, you know, I will agree with the comment that was made earlier about these parks have done extremely well. This county was blessed in the 60s to get over 200 acres handed to them by TVA, by men that negotiated that, specifically Anderson County Park. So, when I was chairman, we found out that the property hadn't been deeded properly, but, you know, we fixed it. So, you know, I'm a big proponent of when folks are doing things properly, no reason to change the water, but I'm certainly going to consider your recommendations. Obviously, you have some qualified candidates. I haven't seen the resumes of all of them. I'm sure they've been presented, but I just wanted to know who we're removing, so we just know that the 5 that are there now aren't there properly. I think, if I had to guess, there's 1, 2 that you've already mentioned that are of those 5 that we're basically suggesting to put back on, and that's Mr. Earl Cagle and Brenda McCamey Courier.
Yes, and I'm sticking with, I think it's productive to have a commissioner on the Conservation Board, though statute does not require a commissioner. I've nominated Chuck Fritz, or appointed Chuck Fritz with your confirmation as the commissioner.
Yeah, I'm not speaking about Chuck at this time. I mean, I don't think I have a problem with that, but I'm just, so Mr. Brown, is he out? Is that what we're saying?
I'm putting Christine Dixon, who used to be over the parks, in his position.
So Mr. Brown,
And I think you've worked with Christine, you know Christine.
yeah,
when you were on
I
the-
know Christine. She was employed with us, and then she left, and now she wants to come back and serve on the board. Great person. Yes, she knows the parks very well, and I think she'd do a great job, but I also think Mr. Brown's done a great job.
Yes.
And I think it's unfair to Mr. Brown, who put all the time in his district, which is in our district, Commissioner Fritz, to make sure that that park didn't go to the scrapyard. He put a lot of time, equity, sweat, and tears himself personally in it, and I think to, in my opinion, kick him in the teeth and say thanks but no thanks, that doesn't ring very well. I just don't understand why Mr. Brown's going to be punished.
Well, he's not being punished, and there's still plenty of work to do with Mr. Brown. He's actually in the district for which Commissioner Chuck Fritz and you serve. But also, I don't want to get too far out on a limb here, because I know it may seem an annoyance, but we're not really supposed to be discussing the individuals. The confirmation process is just a confirmation process.
Well, I'll respect your office, Mayor, and I will move forward, but I think it is important for the people of our district to understand what happened to Mr. Brown. And, you know, because, you know, some might think that he was put on the board improperly, as it was pointed out by you earlier. So I want to make it very clear that there's nothing done improperly.
Sure, absolutely.
And Mr. Brown did a wonderful job, and I'm a commissioner that does serve in that district. I think I said that to you before you said it to me. And I appreciate his service. And Mr. Chairman, I want to tell you, we're losing a good man right there. That man has done a lot, and But that's enough. I'll quit rambling, as I say, and I'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Commissioner Isbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, what I want to do is give my support for Commissioner Warfield. He's done an excellent job there. And I would ask the mayor if she would consider putting 2 commissioners on there, because I support Commissioner Fritz, and also support Commissioner Warfield, because I think he has done a good job. And I've said this before and said this in the last meeting, and we just discussed this. This is not a political agenda, to get back at each other. At some point, we need to come together and say, these are the best people. There's been things that Commissioner Warfield and I didn't agree on. Been several things, but I still respect him. And then on the next thing, we're together on. And I would just, that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Warfield. Commissioner Creasy, we'll go through it again.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit distressed by this particular appointment, Mayor. Are the terms of the present board expired?
Of some individuals, yes, sir.
Okay. It would be I think it'd been better to replace each one as their term expired. And rather than, each one of those members were voted on by the commission and appointed by the nominating committee. They have the full support of the commission and our citizens, and we represented the citizens in appointing those people. And this particular move has the appearance that we're firing some of those members. And I'm troubled by that. And I would prefer that you have replaced each one as their term expired, leaving the present members serving until that time, and then appoint the ones that you want to appoint. That's my disappointment in what we're doing here. And
Well, Commissioner Creasy, perhaps you don't know the backstory. When an employee actually brought this to my attention, when I introduced myself to one of the board members, the employee was aware of the bylaws of the committee. I brought this in a very respectful way to the attention of the Conservation Board. When I did, I was assured that everything would be okay. What happened instead was an effort by the Conservation Board to actually change the bylaws in direct contradiction to state law to maintain the appointment process by commission. This was a multi-month process. I was very patient, tried not to make it anything where there would be any controversy. I was even contacted by the media that there was a controversy brewing, and I said, no, there is not. I've merely asked for an opinion on the matter. So for nearly a year, I tried to handle this with tact, with grace, and with diligence. And those bylaw changes were actually brought to this body and voted on, knowing that the state law was that the mayor appoints and commission confirms. I think I've always been very upfront with the appointments. I've left a lot of the same individuals on most of the boards and committees, including a CETA board and other boards, where individuals who have a long time understanding of the issues have been. I'm putting people on the board now that have long time understanding of those issues. As an example, Ms. Dixon. So at the end of the day, I tried a year in advance to do it the right way. So that's where we are. I think I've made good choices, and it is the mayor's appointment with confirmation, and you can vote it up or down, but the vacancies do exist. So I would like to see those positions filled, so that the board can continue to function. I've been a supporter of the board. I've always worked well, whether it's with Mr. Brummett, Ms. Dixon when she was in the position, Mr. Schilling when he was in the position. I've been a supporter. When I met with Stephanie Wells about a grant opportunity, I recommended the parks be the recipient of that grant. I've done a lot for the parks, and we need the mayor is not over the parks. Never has been, and I've understood that from the very beginning. But the mayor does need to be in a position to work hand in hand with that board in a support role. If they need me, I'm there. Otherwise, but there shouldn't be conflict.
Good explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the bylaws are concerned, my fellow commissioners, the bylaws were the same, and when we changed them, they had not been updated since 1963, when that conservation board was brought about. And how the current conservation board, who is outstanding, by the way, the individuals, Miss Brenda, Mr. Earl, and Terry Brown they put in their own personal times, as well as I have, like at Lost Bottom Park, a park that probably should have been closed because of drug dealing. Now it's excellent, and Mr. Brown was very instrumental in doing that. We looked at 3 other counties across the state and looked at their conservation board bylaws, and that's what we come up with. The bylaws from 1963 were very vague. We kept in a lot. We added some, but the bylaws are very standard across the industry as far as a conservation board. Yes, the mayor did bring, I guess it was sometime last September. Mayor's been to the conservation board a few times, and I remember one, and all the other conservation board members remembers also that Mayor Frank told Terry Brown face to face and at the conservation board meeting, "You will be one of my appointees." She came to the conservation board that one time. That's the only time that she has come to the conservation board and talked about doing any kind of appointments. Now, she is correct. By state law, it does say that the mayor appoints. It's up to county commission to actually confirm those. Nowhere's in the state code does it say that we cannot vote on these as an individual. We can vote on five. Nowhere's. I've read it, and we can get Mr. Yeager up here. I've read it, and I've read it, and I've read it. Nowhere does it say that. All it says is that the mayor will make appointment, and county commission has the right to confirm. That's what it says. Anything other than the mayor says is incorrect, and I'll bet you $1 million that I am correct, because I have read this, Mayor. So I think the current conservation board, including myself, have done an outstanding job. Like in the parks last year, we collected $12,000 more than ever has in this county's history. I've been through the parks, and we've had a lot of turmoil when the other park director was there. We've had some very heated discussions. We don't have that now. Everybody gets along up there. And I think that goes back to what Toby and his crew has done. We got a new security person up there. It's very level-headed. They're just doing an excellent job. And I'm a firm believer in, and I know the mayor has the right to appoint. The old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we can vote on these as individuals. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hitchcock.
I really hate to see us reach this point when our objective is serving the people of the county. And so as I look at the list, I try to figure out how I can vote with integrity and also value value the past. I was on the Conservation Board before I was on commission and ended up being a chair for a while and was responsible for bringing Ms. Dixon on board and giving her the resources she needed to make a wonderful place out of the park. I'm glad she's going to be on there, but I'm not going to vote for her. And the reason is because I'm trying to figure out how to handle this, and I'm going to vote yes on the two that are on there now, and then no for the three that aren't, in hopes that maybe we can have a discussion. People can have a discussion with the mayor down the road. Maybe we need 3 for a quorum, but I suspect the vote will give us that. But I'm going to go 2-3, and I want Commissioner Fritz to know why I'm saying no to him, and Ms. Dixon why I'm saying no to her. It's because of the status they have, which is not being on the board now. So that's the way I'm going to split my vote, and I want them to know it, and I especially want Chuck to know the no is not because I don't want him on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is for Commissioner Warfield. Since you're chairman of Conservation, who's the present members on Conservation right now?
We have 5, there is spots for 5. The current 4 are Brenda, Terry Brown, Earl Cagle, and myself.
So if we appointed these 5, would you be replaced?
Yes, sir.
I thought, is it not a 5-year term, Conservation? Didn't you serve 5 years?
Well, I think the mayor's already pointed out, according to the bylaws, the 5 there perhaps aren't there correctly, but, you know, you asked a question that really concerns me, because if Commissioner Warfield's not on there, I've got some real serious issues, because I just took it for granted he was still staying in his capacity. I think the term we always had was you keep serving, and, you know, I don't know how long I served on there. It might have been 3, 4, 5 years. Heck, I don't remember, but Warfield's done a heck of a lot better job than I ever could do, and I'm sorry to hear that, Commissioner.
But there's just not a term limit for the chairman? I'm just asking, I don't.
There was actually never an election of the chairman. Commissioner Warfield, my understanding in speaking with the committee and looking at the minutes, declared himself chairman.
That's not true, Mayor.
So I guess I've overlooked it, but,
Okay, let's, we're going to do these one at a time. Oh. We had a motion and a second. Okay. Commissioner Kamey, hold on.
I'd like to ask the law director a question. Can you tell us what happens if we don't approve the mayor's recommendation?
Well, we're
Do we
short
have a
people
board?
on the- We're short people on the Conservation Board, and the way I see it, we've only got, would that be 2? So you don't even have a quorum. Am I mistaken on my numbers there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, help me out, Bill.
By the bylaws.
Okay. There's 5 total seats.
There's 5,
Okay.
okay, by the bylaws. All the state code says the mayor does appoint.
Yes, sir.
And it is 5. But anyhow, by the bylaws, the current conservation board stays the same. In theory now, in theory. If this commission does not confirm any of those 5, and if 6 months down the road, they don't confirm any of those 5, if 10 years down the road, they don't confirm any of those 5, the current 4 people, which constitutes a quorum, three of the 5, the current board stays the same.
Yeah, I think you're alluding to the portion that says they'll serve until a successor is named. I think the issue is the mayor's saying they were never appointed correctly. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Mayor?
and I'm appointing So a vacancy is declared. I mean, I'm offering up my appointments.
Yes, ma'am. I want to make sure we've got that cleared up. The current conservation bylaws reflect this procedure that's commensurate with state statute, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
well, I think
We let that
commission
linger.
approved the change, but that is not, I don't know what happened to it. The Conservation Board, and I think you worked with Phil on making those changes, and
I sent you that memo.
yes, that they are the mayor's
We
appointments.
should have a copy that is in line with state law.
Yes.
On that. Robert, does that help you any at all?
Well, let me ask a more pointed question. Do we have a conservation board that can act now?
It's a good question. Off the cuff, I would say no. Those bylaws will not trump state statute. I can do some research on that and give you a definitive answer, but just thinking through it, probably not. We would need three people for a quorum to have that board in operating capacity, but before I move forward with that opinion, I'd like some time to look at it, but I believe what I'm saying verbally now is correct.
Thank you.
You done? Commissioner Yeager?
That answered my question, thank you.
Okay.
And I would like to address, because I was called out there, that I don't go to the meetings. I will point out, and I did talk to some of the prospective members about changing the day of the meeting. The day of the meeting is at 4 p.m. on Monday, the same Monday that is Finance Committee at 3 p.m. Purchasing Committee then starts, and then often you have nominating and then operations that night. There are anywhere from 4 to 5 meetings on that very same night. And Commissioner Warfield knows that because he's on Purchasing Committee, and he has missed some of the Purchasing Committee meetings because their Conservation Board goes long. So my not being in attendance at that meeting is not a lack of concern. I have been on multiple occasions, and usually I ask to go first in order to get up to Purchasing Committee. So I just wanted to clarify that for folks that think I'm being irresponsible.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Meade?
Yeah, just a little bit of a comment. Back when we had an issue about the Legal Service Advisory Board, and they had not had a meeting for 6 years, I believe. And we asked for an opinion from Nashville, from CTAS, about what the status of that committee was, and as I recall, they told us very clearly that until the people have been replaced, that committee, that board stays in place until it's been removed. I'd also point out in some study I did for the Charter Commission stuff, when I was looking at the charters for the 2 counties that had charter governments, both of them went years where they didn't follow the law, and the courts ruled that the things that they had done had been done in good faith, that therefore they were valid government activities. So I think a case can be made that the people that have been on this board for a period of time were done in good faith and would come under that same legal precedence, that they're still considered to be legal until they're replaced. So until they're replaced, I think those people are still on the board. In the case of the Legal Service Advisory Committee, there had been no meetings for 6 years, and it was still decided the same people still were on the board until properly replaced.
Okay.
And I'm not an attorney, but good faith would be, yes, I don't think anyone is calling into question the actions of the board or that any of them had authority in the past. But I did request a legal opinion from the law director, who did say, yes, they were my appointments. So now I'm exercising one of the authorities that is granted to the mayor. The mayor should work with folks to choose the best people to serve the people of Anderson County, and I think I've done that.
Okay, so there's motion on the floor, motion in a second to vote on these individuals individually. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. 1 no, motion passes. So we'll go one at a time. we'll start at the very first one, and let's go to the board and vote on these so there's no misunderstanding. So, we're voting yes to elect or appoint Mr. Earl Cagle, the very first one. So yes is to appoint him, no is not to appoint him.
Mr. Chairman, I don't feel comfortable voting on these.
However, we already have a motion and a second. You can abstain.
I've never abstained from nothing.
Okay, 13 yes, 2 no. Okay, that takes care of Mr. Cagle. All right, the second one, Mrs. Brenda Courier. Yes or no? Go to the board and vote, please.
She's presently on the board.
Sir? Yes, sir. Okay, 15 yes, so that takes care of number 2. Okay, Mr. Christopher Silver. Go to the board and vote, please.
See, I don't know that person at all.
You got a clicker. Okay. 2 yes, 13 no. Mr. Austin, yes, sir. Yes, sir, you can ask that question.
Mr. Reagan, let me just ask, regardless of whatever, there's actually 2 things. So we only have 1 vacancy, number 1. Why not we're dealing with just the 1 vacancy? But number 2, anytime in the past, if this commission had approved this board previously, as far as I'm concerned, we still have a board.
Yes, sir, I understand what you're saying.
Regardless of sex. I mean, right now, in my eyes, the Conservation Board has 4 members. All this commission needs to be worrying about right now is 1 person that is not on there for
I'm
the
following
party.
you 100%. What she is saying is they're not legally constituted. They never followed the process of the mayor appointing and county commission confirming. I believe the way the process was before, nomination committee sent the names up and county commission confirmed. I can remember years ago, former Mayor Lynch being involved in this, but somehow it got to the nomination committee, and then it came to county commission and was confirmed that way. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying the board now, as it sits, is not clearly, legally constituted, correct? That's why the normal default rule, Commissioner Meade, is in Tennessee, the person continues to serve until a successor is appointed. The Legal Services Committee was a totally different issue. Those people were legally constituted on that. This is not. Her issue is it was not legally formed. That's the basis, but I think what we're where we're gonna end up is, Jay, you need to give us a legal opinion. That's where we'll end up tonight, and I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, number 4, County Commissioner Chuck Fritz. Go to the board and vote. Five yes, 10 no. Okay, motion fails on that one. Okay, Miss Christine Dixon. Go to the board and vote, please. Five yes, 10 no. Okay, that one fails too. All right, 2 yes and 3 no's. The first 2 yes and the last 3 no. Okay,
So the question is gonna be, do we have a legal, conservation board that can complete the scope of the work under the statute, can operate legally? That's gonna be the question, correct? I'll get back with you on that, if you'll give me a little bit
Thank
of
you.
time. Thank you.
Can you do that tonight?
No, sir, I don't. Not during the meeting, I can't, but I'll be glad to get it to you as soon as possible.
Commissioner Hitchcock.
Jay? Yes, sir. If I read the board right, so we did confirm two.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can you,
First two.
can you ask an opinion if, with extenuating circumstances, if two can be a quorum?
Right. We've got Mr. Cagle and Ms. Courier.
Would
Those
you
are
do
legally
that?
confirmed by the county commission
So
tonight.
instead of three, see if we can work with two until we work out
Yes, sir.
what's going on. Thank
I'll be glad to look at that. It seems to me, right, it seems to me that 5 was set by statute, but again, let me refresh my memory. It's been some time.
Okay. All
I
right.
have a couple of other issues to make commission aware of, and I do want to say that I think the action of the board tonight is not very respectful of the office of the mayor. It has nothing to do with Terry Frank, the person, but it is a respect of the office of the mayor and a separation of powers, and there should be an effort to work together. The first issue is payment in lieu of taxes, and just to make you all aware, there is some federal discussion that's gone on in the Federal Register. It's noting that DOE shall terminate all existing PILT agreements and enter into new PILT agreements that are consistent across all eligible sites or in compliance with the requirement that payments are not made in excess of the taxes that would have been payable for such property in the condition in which it was originally acquired. So this came in after the agenda deadline on Wednesday, or I would have put it in your agenda packet. I did reach out to Congressman Fleischman's office. I've been assured I will get a response from them. What is happening is basically you have some folks that are saying there are inconsistencies across all of the DOE sites. And for that reason, they're talking about doing a reset. The reason I am making you aware is it is unknown what this termination of agreement means when you have already budgeted, which Natalie did budget for DOE in lieu of funds for the 17-18 fiscal year. So it is something we need to keep a very close eye on, and you all, as a body, may want to also reach out to your congressman and to the United States senators. I don't have any information if it's going to affect this fiscal year, and in reaching out to folks at DOE who handle the PILT payments, they don't know what it means yet either. They were taken by surprise Wednesday afternoon as well. Then the other thing I wanted to make you aware, PILT is the payment in lieu of funds that you receive from the Department of Energy on a per acre what DOE uses that is tax exempt, and then they pay us per acre a payment in lieu of taxes. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Commissioner Wandell, did you want to talk on that, ask a question on that?
I will talk on that. I'll come back to the other comment later. Payment in lieu of tax, you're correct, Mayor. The DOE refers to the 1955 Atomic Act, where they deemed the property to be agricultural in nature, so they pay the taxes on that. I'm really interested in this. I think 6 months ago, maybe you approached us, Mayor, and you asked us to give you the rights to go renegotiate the pricing. And I understand this didn't have anything to do with you. They, for some reason, decided they're not going to pay that. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, I think it's something we need to immediately bring to the operations and open back up, because if they're going to feel that they don't have to pay us the payment in lieu of tax based on the 1955 Atomic Energy Act, then I think we may have a case to look at all back payments not paid properly. Now, everybody's got a different opinion, but, I think, Mr. Chairman, this body needs to be very aware of that and get more aggressive on that. I think there's 10,000 or 11,000 acres that's set in Anderson County, and we don't get paid properly on those tax dollars, where everybody else in this county has to pay their fair share. Now, there may be some that don't pay their fair share, but we're going to talk about DOE right now. So, What I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is I'd like to make a motion, we defer the payment in lieu of tax from DOE to operations for further discussion, and I so move.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion?
I'll amend my motion to the legislative body. Thank you, Commissioner. No, I think you're right, Commissioner Olson. I do.
Okay. Commissioner McCamey, is this on this before we vote? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Commissioner McCamey. Oh, that's not on DOE, right?
No.
Okay. Mayor, continue.
Okay, the one last thing, Commissioner Wandell had asked me to look into, commission passed a resolution in support of an increase in the severance tax for gas and oil in the county. And Commissioner Wandell, I could not find that the state has taken that issue up. However, something commission may want to consider is there has been 2 years in a row an effort. The way the oil and gas severance tax is split is 2/3 goes to the state and 1/3 comes to the county. In the 109th General Assembly, Senator Yeager and Representative Powers brought up a bill for all of the oil and gas severance tax to come to the counties and none to the state other than an administrative fee. That didn't get very far in the 109th, and in the 110th, Representative John Reagan and Senator Bailey brought that legislation up again. And as Anderson County, I think we lead, I reached out to the Mining Association. We are number one, we lead the state in gas, and we are 5th in oil production. So obviously, if we could get this reallocation legislation passed, Anderson County would stand to benefit probably the most in the state. The holdup is it means $425,000 less going into the state coffers. So it might be worth, if you want me to draw up a resolution in support of that reallocation and the money coming to where it's actually, where the gas and the oil come out of the ground, I'd be happy to put that together.
Commissioner Wandell?
I appreciate you following up on that. Yeah, but I think we passed a resolution. Did you sign that one?
You passed a resolution for an increase in the tax.
Right.
This is, that effort has gone nowhere in Nashville to increase taxes. And no, I did not sign that one.
So the resolution,
But-
because you made a comment just a minute ago before we went into payment in lieu of tax and stuff, and your comment was something to the fact, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but something about how we don't appreciate your position as the mayor. Is that
I was
kinda-
talking in reference to this discussion on the Conservation Board, yes, to
Well,
try to say that I need to put Commissioner Warfield on, I think is,
I don't think anybody said that, but
Well,
it
yes.
would be nice. I mean, but back to your comment, and you're correct. It's a two-way street. I think your office has demonstrated for a long time, it's a one-way street.
I don't believe so, sir.
Mayor, you have your opinion, I have mine. There's over, if I had to guess, between 20 and 30 resolutions you have not executed, that this body has passed, in most cases unanimously. And you have effectively demonstrated your power in not executing them. But I find it ironic that you're upset with us tonight because we're not approving your recommendations. That might have something to do with it.
Well, I think there are resolutions that come before this body. The mayor is a separate office from the county commission. I have not placed my signature, for instance, when there is a tax increase, or when I think it violates, any kind of promises I have made. I mean, I think I spelled out, for instance, one of the resolutions that was very productive in terms of recommending a gas plant to go in the Claxon community, that if I would have had that in advance, I would have recommended some language change, because if I were the United States Senator, I would have looked at that and felt like Anderson County Commission and the mayor wanted to shut down Bull Run Steam Plant. And I was looking at 150 jobs to plus 100 or so contractors. And so I did not sign that, but I didn't send a letter to Nashville that said, you know, absolutely, the mayor's opposed. I have explained to them when there are situations where it did not follow proper procedure, and I've let them know that I've been in support of something that you passed, but I have noted to them, and I'm happy to share those letters where I've said my signature does not appear on there because this did not follow proper procedure. However, I am in support of the effort that they are putting forward. So, I think if I had more of a chance and you might communicate with me some of these questions, it might clear the air.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thought I heard the mayor say at the end, and I appreciate the update on those prior 20 to 30 resolutions that haven't been signed due to technical difficulties, TCA codes, and not properly presented at the time, and all the other reasons above given. I respectfully accept those reasons. But I believe you just stood there and said that you were prepared to present a resolution in support of gas and oil tax. Maybe I heard you wrong. Is that what you said?
No, sir.
Oh, correct me.
What I said is I would be in support of, and I would be willing to draft the resolution for you for legislation to reallocate existing oil and gas tax,
So you wouldn't propose
Because
raising it, you would just propose reallocating.
which means the state gets less and the county, where it's pumped out of, gets the money.
So-
Right now, the state gets 2/3, but it's coming out of Anderson County, it's coming out of our roads, it's coming out of our land, so I would definitely support a reallocation. That would mean existing taxes just get reassigned, they come in, they're used here for schools, for Gary Long, and the consumers don't pay more because there is not an increase in taxation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner McCamey.
Mayor, you had a meeting on July the 11th about the Tennessee Broadband Accessibility Act grant
Yes, sir.
meeting. Can you update us on that, what happened at that meeting, and if there was anything productive that came out of it? Because
Absolutely.
a lot of people are interested in.
We had
Internet
a very
access.
good meeting. Commissioner Creasy came. He made a trip back from Nashville to actually be there. We had a lot of good minds in the room. The state of Tennessee has not released the grant guidance yet. There are $425 million in grants that are available. What I did is I looked at some other states that are doing something similar. Minnesota is actually doing a border-to-border broadband grant program. And so, in terms of guidance for the meeting, we kind of use that grant application as guidance. I sent out a memo today to all those who had attended that working group, and I'll send out a public release well in advance, like I did for this last meeting, for folks that want to come back. And in the memo, I'm recommending that we make a decision if we want a grant application for unserved areas, underserved areas, or maybe a grant application that is a combination of both, then that we identify the areas to be served. At the meeting, at the working group meeting, Briceville and the New River area came up, North Anderson County, Andersonville, there are a lot of gaps there. That was another area, and Dutch Valley, your district and Commissioner White's district was also brought up as an area where there are a lot of gaps. Then the work plan is, once we have made those decisions, that we would set about a work goal to canvass those particular areas in order to give us the advantage for grant application, and do that either through a petition or a card process. And then from there, you can do some studies on economic and community impact. And so, for instance, what I'm suggesting is that we do a grant that covers two areas. One where you can reach a lot of people that are underserved. And then we also choose an area such as Briceville where there's really an emergency response issue. If you need to dial for help or assistance, broadband will make an impact there. The education component would be very important there. And so that would be my recommendation, but I want to get back with the working group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meade.
Back when I pushed my button,
I know.
we were, you were
I
talking about
know.
payment in lieu
I'm
of
just
taxes.
human. Just human.
And I just want to say that I spent a number of years on the Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board. It's a DOE, it's a board that kind of oversees DOE operations. And this will be 8 years ago. And there were people making presentations before the Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board about how Oak Ridge was not getting its fair share of the DOE funding. And that if you compared our site to other sites around the country, that we were really being underpaid. So this change in system might be to our advantage.
It could be, yes.
But like all things going to Washington, one never knows.
Commissioner Hitchcock.
Thank you. Mayor, before you leave, I want to see if I can say something that makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
That's going to make it really good.
I have in front of me the answer to the question that I asked the law director with the Attorney General opinion, state of Tennessee, in dealing with county commission and quorums. In both the quorum and the way we have to have a majority, to be an absent count as a no vote or a yes vote, all of that is the number, is the majority of those in office. So right now, 2 on the Conservation Board would be a quorum. They're going to be able to do business. I'd like to ask you to consider the merits of bringing in one at a time, maybe next month an appointment to the board, the following month an appointment to the board for a couple of reasons. One is we're not voting against anybody, and I think we can get more to the merits of that person that you're wanting to put on. And it's not are we voting to kick Commissioner Warfield off the Conservation Board. But we can certainly look at those other 2 slots, and people's interest in the board might change. And just consider that for the good of the county, that we can get that number up to 4 at least, and if we still have a slot, that's going to be a problem, or 2, we can deal with them on their merits. And I saw tonight that we weren't dealing with it on its merits at all, and I think that's a disservice to the citizens. Thank you.
Commissioner Creasy.
Yeah, and I'd like to make 2 comments. One was the broadband meeting that the mayor, she was very well prepared to lead that meeting and led the conversation, and she had done her homework, and as she always does. When she comes before us, she's always very well prepared, and she has all the answers for our questions. And I'm saying that's what happened at the broadband meeting. She was very well prepared. She has she sent out a letter today setting the guidelines for that future meetings. And I encourage other commissioners to attend that, because it could mean getting broadband and getting a grant to some of those communities like Briceville and New River and up at Andersonville that aren't served. And she's working real hard on that. So I think we should support her in that endeavor. The other comment I have was following up on my comments earlier, Mayor. I do have respect for your office, but I felt that my comments a few moments ago about the selection of the Conservation Board, I feel much like Commissioner Hitchcock, that let's replace them as their term expires. I think that you would be showing that you're willing to work with us and showing a respect for county commission as well. And I hope that we can go in that direction. We need to all work together, because we do have a mayor that's well-prepared, that can lead and show good leadership. And we have a great county commission with the same merits. And I think we could do a lot by working together. And I hope that we can move in that direction.
Commissioner Fritz.
I wouldn't want to say nothing, but when I sit here, I just said, well, I'm going to say it anyway, because if I always told you think it, you might as well say it. We're wrapping up 15 years on the commission, and this is the first time I've ever seen a commissioners vote against a fellow commissioner for a committee. I mean, this is getting to be ridiculous. And when you say a great commission back in your commissioners, I mean, I'm starting to have second thoughts. Basically, you're not kicking no one off a committee. The committee doesn't exist right now because it wasn't done legally. And I was just asked to, step up, fill in a position, and I said, well, if you can't get nobody else, you need to be, I'll do it. And to me, this is an insult. And trust me, I'll understand and I'll remember. And this is, no, there is nobody being kicked off committee because no one is on that committee right now. There's only 2 members on that committee. And in 15 years, other than chairman or vice chairman, anything like that, this is the first time I've ever seen a commissioner voted off, not voted off, but denied serving on a committee. Now, this is getting ridiculous.
Yes, sir, it is. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. I have, Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question of Commissioner Warfield, please?
Sure.
Commissioner Warfield, were you asked or even approached to continue serving on this committee?
I was not asked to, as Commissioner Fritz was asked to. I'm not sure who asked him to be on, to fill out an application, but I was not asked to. I read, and I was told that there was an article in the Oak Ridger. I read the article. I sent an email to Mayor Frank asking what was required. I finally read the article, and I filled out an application, and I sent in my resume. But no, ma'am, to answer your question, I was never asked, as Commissioner Fritz was asked. But
Mr.
I did,
Chairman,
but I did apply, though.
The reason why I'm simply asking that question is because through the years that Commissioner Warfield has been on that committee, we hear about it all the time, whether it's about the fish, the ducks, the waterfront, whatever the land. And it just seems ironic that he was not requested to continue fulfilling that seat. Commissioner Fritz, I'm sorry that you see it as being an insult that I voted no, but I would really like to see Commissioner Warfield continue on. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Warfield.
I think I made a statement that
Okay.
I was not asked. I was,
All right.
thank you, sir.
You're good?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mayor.
Thank you.
5-minute break. Uh-oh. Commissioner Wandell?
It was brought up earlier in the mayor's report about the idea of having the mayor draft a resolution in support of reallocating the mineral severance tax for oil and natural gas. And I think that's a great idea, and I'll make a motion to accept that and have the mayor draft a mineral severance reallocation for oil and gas from the state of Tennessee to the county of Anderson, and I so move.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion on that? All in favor with what we got?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. Sorry about that, Commissioner Wandale.
No, thank you. No, we're fine. Thank you.
Law Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Commission. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. Just a few things, and we'll move on to other issues, but does anybody have any questions on Section A of my written report on the contract approvals? Section B, the lawsuit update. That had to do with the Livia Forte case that has come before this body, I think 2 times before. The chancellor did grant our petition for contempt on that, and issued $50 a day fines for each day the lady's out of compliance. That's the residence that's up in District 3 that we've talked about several times before. I appreciate Commissioner Warfield for working on that, Commissioner Emmert, thank you so much. And also the Public Works Department and the mayor, thank you. The new lawsuit is the Tiffany Allen case. That's a gender discrimination case. We're handling that in-house, no problems there. Item D is an action item that I want you to consider. It's the ethics policy amendment. It is in your agenda packet for tonight. What this does is just take out the references to the 57 Act that was in there before and replace those with the references to the 81 Act.
Motion second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Commissioner Wandale?
That's on another issue, Mr. Chairman. I'll come.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Do you want to pick it up here?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Jay, I
Yes, sir.
apologize. I didn't get to the clicker quick enough again.
That's okay.
The Hensley's lease.
Yes.
I know it's going to be talked about in purchasing, and I could probably ask them, but I thought while you were here. Is there just a flat fee, or is that a yearly fee?
I don't have it in front of me, but
I'll ask the question in purchasing.
I know it was such a, the way Mr. Cole explained it is that it's an excellent opportunity for us to lock it in for a long time. But that'll come up in purchasing. You've got that one tonight, don't you? Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Sorry.
Anything else on that issue? Thank you. The other issue I have that needs some action by County Commission is the Senior Center MOU amendment. And we passed this last month, and Mr. Farley was watching on TV. He heard I think somebody called him and heard the discussion about the non-compete in there. And he wants everybody to know he's willing to take it just a little bit further. So Section 9 under Mr. Farley's rights and obligations, that's on page 4. It did say Farley shall not engage in the business of event hosting for 5 years at any other large-scale facility over 50 guests, competing for the same type of events and same or past clientele within a 20-mile radius of 205 Main Street. He wants to clarify that just a little bit and add the section right below that. It will replace Section 9 in its entirety. Farley shall not engage in the business of event hosting for a period of 10 years at any other large-scale events facility competing for the same type clientele, same or past clientele, same events, same or past clientele within a 20-mile radius of 205 Main Street, excluding the FOP Lodge located at 424 Goins Avenue, Clinton. That's above Wish radio station. The reason being is he has a financial interest in that building. He has for some time. They do have small kids' birthday parties. In fact, one of the girls that worked for me had a Sweet 16 party there years ago. But it's nothing that would be in competition with the senior center. But he wanted to add that into the agreement. With your permission, I'd like that approved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. We have conducted a few classes for the Sheriff's Office on constitutional law, 1983 actions, and law enforcement liability. Also, you may have noticed some new signs on the courthouse. There's been a new legislation passed from Nashville on guns in the courthouse. And the biggest difference is, if you remember, we've discussed this before, the former statute said a room where judicial proceedings were taking place. It now says a building. So no one will be allowed in the courthouse while judicial proceedings are taking place. And this would apply to permit holders also. Now, what we've got, and I want all citizens to be aware of this, on each and every door, public entrance to this building, the Jolly Building, and Division 2 General Sessions in Oak Ridge, you'll see a sign. These are temporary ones that we've got now, and it'll tell you whether or not there's judicial proceedings taking place at the time or whether not. If there's no judicial proceedings taking place, a permit holder can carry in this building. But anyway, if they are taking place, there's no firearms in this building. Commissioner Meade, you're our resident expert. You got anything you want to add to that?
Well, the thing I want to add is it's more than just firearms. It's anything that you wouldn't be able to bring in a courtroom before, which is basically anything you can't take on an airplane. So technically, if you have a little pocket knife and you go up to go through the detectors and you have your, inch-long blade pocket knife or heaven forbid, fingernail clippers with a sharpened blade, okay, those would be prohibited in a courtroom under the current law, okay? Well, not under the current law, under the previous law. So under this new thing, technically, if you come into the courthouse anywhere or any of the other buildings that have courtrooms, while proceedings are in progress, you've committed a Class E felony by having any kind of a weapon. And that would include things that we don't normally think of as being weapons, but we've always restricted from our courtrooms. So basically, if you just keep in mind that anything that you couldn't take into a courtroom before, now if the sign on the door says proceedings are in progress, don't take it back to your car. That includes a little pocket knife or anything else that you have. And the thing I'm concerned about is people have been allowed to have little pocket knives and things for as long as I know in Anderson County coming into the courthouse, unless they were going into a courtroom. But now it's technically a Class E felony. I'm thinking that there probably is going to be some corrections on that law. I think, because I talked to people that actually forwarded the law and supported that amendment to a bill that was there, and none of them realized what the impact would be. They had come from areas where the security for their courtrooms there was a building that was just the courtrooms. And so the building was being controlled, and they didn't think it really changed anything, whereas for some counties like Anderson County, it made a very significant difference. So I think we have to have a little bit of, the sheriff talked about common sense, that he's probably not going to bust somebody with a felony charge for having the fingernail clippers at this point. But I think the sheriff's department has discretion, and I think they will probably perform that discretion with due diligence and with the intent of the law in mind.
I think you're correct, Commissioner Meade.
Mr. Yeager, is that something, there's no way they can monitor that with the metal detector on the third floor, so.
They'll certainly be able to monitor it where the actual judicial proceedings are taking
Right.
place.
Only on the third floor, though.
If it is a building that's outside those exceptions I gave you in the handouts, you have to have metal detectors, security guards, or law enforcement officers at the entryway. The courthouse is an exception for that.
There's no requirement to have security for a courthouse at all.
But aren't we one of the only few courthouses in the state of Tennessee that doesn't have any kind of metal detectors on the first floor when you enter the building?
I'll get to that. I think this is a good
Oh, okay.
segue to
I'm
bring it
sorry.
up. But a couple other things on that new legislation that concerns me is it's treble damages. That's 3 times the damages, which is kind of hard to envision the damages here. But the other thing that's concerning is the 3 times attorney's fees. Anytime we have that, we may see predator attorneys. That bothers me. But the biggest issue is it removes our immunity under the Governmental Tort Liability Act, which is a shocker, but it is in that bill. Anyway, I went to the courthouse security meeting last week, and I did lay a handout from the judges there. The judges are very concerned about the security in this building. The other issue they would like for us to address, and I'd like to get both these issues referred to operations, they need victim witness conference rooms, attorney conference rooms up on this floor. We're having problems with victims of a crime meeting or confronting the perpetrator's family out here in the hallways. It takes away from our security checkpoint. causes a lot of commotion. I sent you that statute that recommends that we have these rooms, and that's the next question that's going to come to many of you is where would we put them? They've asked for us to take a look at maybe moving some of the archives from Ms. Harris into another location. So we'll talk about this at the Operations Committee, if you don't mind, if I can get a referral to move that to Operations.
Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And they also would like to, for us to reconsider the proposal they had. Jerry, you might be able to help me with this, or Commissioner Creasy, or Commissioner Fritz. They brought us a proposal, I want to say 10 years ago, that they had a single point of entry to this courthouse, and that was down in the area to be remodeled was where we store election machines. You remember that, Rick? They want us to take a look at this again, and I'll tell you in Operations why, but they have concerns, and they've had the TBI express concerns about how this courthouse has security. So anyway, we'll talk about both those issues at Operations in August, and they also would like to see the PA system fixed in this building. They've been asking for 2 years, according to the judges. It's not been fixed. They think it's a security issue. I would agree with them. They have their bailiff has radio contact with a security checkpoint out here, but it's to make the public aware that we may have an incident on one of the floors, or they need to evacuate this building. Our PA system has been down inside this building for about 2 years. But anyway, we'll take all those issues up at Operations next month. Another item that I would like to get referred to Operations for next month is the project manager for General Sessions Division 2. I'm sorry, I just do not have the time to do that. I know I had a couple of county commissioners volunteer for that. I'm not expecting any action on this issue tonight, but when we get to Operations next month, we're going to need a project manager, somebody that can go by there on a daily basis, hopefully somebody with some experience in the construction trades, and stay on top of that. We know from past experience, going back several years from, I guess, when Robert was the project manager at the jail, if we have somebody on the ground, we get a better job done. And it stays within budget that way. So I'd like for you to start considering who you'd like to see be a project manager. And Mayor, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'd also like to consider Roger Lloyd. I think Roger does have some experience, but I'm going to let you put his name forward. But if all of you know Roger, he is our maintenance guy and the supervisor in that department. But please be thinking of that situation. I want to get a project manager on board as soon as possible. The last thing I have for you tonight, and yes, go ahead, Jerry.
Don't you point at me.
I was raising my hand for permission.
There you go. Commissioner White.
Thank you, sir. Will we pay that project manager?
I don't think so.
We're asking him to go by once a day and use his expertise and not pay him.
Well, we have it in the past. Sometimes we have, sometimes we haven't. It's up to county
So
commission.
we're going to use a county employee?
Yes, a county employee or somebody that would volunteer for the work. I can think of a couple county commissioners that have a lot of experience in this area.
Well, I can too, but I'm thinking if we hire someone with pay, then we can expect that person to be there in a timely manner, and I think that job would require.
Jerry, I agree with you 100%. The problem with all these issues right now is finding the funding source. And maybe that'll be something we consider. I'm not saying that'll be up to county commission, not me, but the funding source is the issue there.
Well, it's going to take a certain type of person to know and understand.
It will.
Okay.
Somebody that can read plans and blueprints and has an engineering, construction background that I couldn't do it myself.
Well, I couldn't either, but I mean, that's the reason I thought if we're going to require that kind of a person with that expertise, we need to be able to,
I agree with you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. So Jay, do you not think that this is something that perhaps two people, like maybe Roger Lloyd and Commissioner
That's fine, Commissioner Scott.
Commissioner Yeager,
Again,
I think he put his
I'm-
hand up with,
I'm going to leave that up to Operations Committee and the full body of County Commission, but
so two
yes.
people could actually handle the
Yes,
task.
that may help.
We'll discuss that
thank
in
you.
operations.
We do
Yes.
need somebody there pretty much every day for a while. The last item I have for you is the opioid litigation. County Commission passed three motions last month. We've done some research on this. I had a firm willing to do a presentation for you tonight. The firm is Knight and Taylor. Knight and Taylor, as you all know, have been defending us for years and doing an excellent job. The DA came to my office on Friday. He is in the process of researching this whole issue to see if he's going to make a case. He has respectfully asked that we hold off on this decision until the August meeting, and then hopefully we'll see General Clark here. We'll get an update from him and see how he wants to proceed. But anyway, after the meeting tonight, I think many of y'all know Jonathan and Nate Moore. Is Nate gone? Yeah, they've worked for us for years. If you want to speak to them about it and get a little heads up on where this opioid litigation is going, please do so. But expect some movement out of this at the August meeting. That's all I have for you tonight. Is there any questions that I can answer for you?
Mayor.
If possible, if they could speak for 5 minutes, I think it would be beneficial for the.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you guys mind if they do? Now, again, this is all tentative on what General Clark decides to do, but thank you. Jonathan, would you like to speak?
Again, my name is Jonathan Taylor. I know several of the commissioners in this fine county and have had the pleasure of working in this county for many numbers of years. Probably 9 years for myself. My partner, Arthur Knight, has worked in this county at least 15, maybe more than that. We primarily, our specialty is defense. We spend and devote our practice to defending governmental entities such as Anderson County, their employees, and their elected officials. And I would note, in preparation for this meeting, I didn't know that we would get the chance and the pleasure to speak with you tonight, but in going through a case list, we have worked over at least the last 5-6 years and resolved 48 cases on behalf of Anderson County and their employees and their elected officials. And we're very proud of that work that we've done for this fine county. And we take great pride in that work. And just a little bit of background, defense is our specialty, but we have unique position having relationships with Anderson County and other governmental entities around East Tennessee. And so I have a family friend, and Kenny Bird, a longtime family friend. Kenny, introduce yourself there. And Kenny is a partner at a law firm by the name of Leaf Cabraser, which is a national plaintiffs-only law firm. They have offices all over the country. Their specialty is precisely this kind of work, working with governmental entities on a mass scale and bringing very important, influential litigation across the country. They have an office in Nashville, Tennessee. They have roots in this state. And quite frankly, even outside of knowing Kenny and through that relationship and that family connection, I know of his firm, and there is nobody in this country that has the kind of experience in handling this kind of litigation. This is extremely tough litigation that we're talking about here. You're talking about taking on some of the world's most powerful drug manufacturers, the distributors, and they're going to bring and throw everything that they have at this kind of litigation. And so it's important when you're considering these kind of issues and this kind of litigation that you work with somebody that can see this stuff through to the end. Leif Cabraser, Mr. Bird's partner there, his partner here, Mark Chalice, and John Spraggins. All three of those gentlemen are here today as well, but they have worked on some of the most important cases. They were instrumental in the tobacco litigation. Right on the front lines, they were lead counsel on that litigation. The VW emissions case, it's much more recent. The BP oil spill, they have served as lead counsel on all that litigation. These guys have the resources and the ability and the experience to take on those. And so this partnership between my law firm at Taylor & Knight and the work that we've done in this county, I think is extremely impactful and powerful for this county to be able to partnership and work with that. So you would have somebody that has the experience and the resources in carrying this kind of litigation to the end, as well as somebody that has worked and knows this county the way that our firm does and has done it at a high level in representing the interest of the citizens and taxpayers of this county. And I don't think anybody else out there, again, this is not to pitch against, and I'm not here to sell you on anyone else or to compete against anybody else, but I don't know anyone else that can kind of offer that to this county. And very, very proud of that, proud of our experience, and hopefully, with the commission's approval, would love to work for the county and represent this county in potential litigation against those drug manufacturers and those distributors. The opioid epidemic has just been devastating to across the state, but certainly in East Tennessee. And so with that, assuming the commissioners have no further questions or
There's going to be a lot of questions about this, and please feel free to email me. You may say, well, what are our damages here? Well, we've got plenty of damages. Believe me, there's several theories to go after these individuals about, but one of our offices or our departments has experienced the most, and that's the jail. And we've got Chief Jailer Avery Johnson. I believe you had your hand up. Avery, did you want to speak about this issue?
I didn't have my hand up, but I'll speak about it. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. I do feel that that our community, our county, and especially the jail has suffered a lot of damages. I remember probably a couple of years ago, Chuck Fleischman came in, we spoke with him about the drug epidemic. And, one of the things I said to him, if it was moon dust and we was allergic to it, we'd quit going to get it. So this stuff is it's just off the wall. Jonathan has, and his firm has represented us successfully in many, many lawsuits. What's concerning to me as not only a citizen, but as the jail administrator, is the drugs that are out there today. These people are coming to jail walking dead. And as taxpayers, we're having to assume that responsibility for their actions. Just in the last, Commissioner Val can probably give numbers better than I can, but probably just in the last 4 to 5 months, we've had at least 6 or 7 that have come to the jail either unconscious or we've had to ship them out. And they stay in the hospital 2 or 3 days, sometimes more than that. So, if we can, I think we should be compensated for that. Our officers on the road, the ambulance department, there's a lot of damages I think that we can show. And I would be proud to work with Jonathan in helping the county.
Just briefly go over the facts of the Sullivan case of last year and how we got stuck with the liability on that and what actually happened.
Well, yeah, I can. Unfortunately, this individual came to jail, highly medicated, had some health problems as well, had been an addict for some time. There was some issues that would have saved us, had they have taken place. The medical company that we had up until the first of this month, held a lot of liability, and they paid a lot of money. We also had a individual that worked at the jail that falsified some documentation that we didn't find out about that until the depositions. And they lied to the TBI, they lied to our investigator, and he was indicted and arrested today because of that. So, but this individual, when he came to jail, was able to talk, able to walk, and just deteriorated relatively quickly after that. Had the nurse done his job, and instead of falsifying that he took his vitals, we would have probably been able to save him. But that didn't happen. And like I said, the medical company paid dearly for that, and should have. It's hard to work at a facility not knowing what's going to happen on a daily basis. But when you have individuals as frequently as we do now come to jail, 20, 25 years old, some of them older, some of them younger, but it's hard to see this. It's hard on our officers mentally. It's hard on our operations. We knee-jerk react now, and it costs us money when we do that, send them out. I've had to caution the officers in each municipality. One particular department stopped on the way to the jail and done a sternum rub on an individual just to get him awake enough to get him to jail. And I told that police chief, I said, you know, it's going to hurt your department. I'm not trying to get the officer in trouble, but we're not dealing with drunks anymore. We're dealing with people that have overdosed. And you're passing the hospital, it's on video. So we're doing everything we can to combat this. The road officers see it, the ambulance service sees it. But it is particularly hard and a financial burden on the taxpayers through the jail, because we have to accept those individuals. And more times than not, we're calling the ambulance service as soon as they pull in the bay. So anything we can do as citizens or as commission, I think we need to do it. And I would like the opportunity to work with Jonathan. I trust him. I trust his firm. I got to go with him the first time he ever went to federal court, and we beat it. You know, it was a weak trial, and we had
First jury trial.
his first jury trial. But that's what we need to do. You know, we need to win. And I would hope that this county, if we do enter into something like that, would win and get a good settlement. We paid out a lot. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, Jay, will this be coming back to commission, or will it be going to committee?
County Commission, next month.
Why isn't it going to a committee, though, really?
It was a county commission piece of business last month. County commission is the one that passed the motions.
Okay.
It'll come back here as old business.
Old business?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Thank
First
you
of
so
all, I
much.
appreciate you staying within the time frame. Second of all, I like the shoes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, reports from committees. Finance Committee, Ms. Erb. How you doing, Ms. Erb?
I'm good, how are you?
Doing fine.
On behalf of the Finance Committee, I have 2 action items for you. In June, in the minutes, there were 3 letters and forms related to cash management. They're included in your packet. They need to become part of the commission minutes. So requesting a motion to accept those forms and documents.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you. And then also, the July committee minutes were also in your package. Those need to be included in the minutes as well, and that also included 1 cash management form as well to be accepted into the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great. Moving on to the Budget Committee report. The cash and fund balance report is before you. This is as of June 30th. The unassigned fund balance is $2.6 million. The restricted fund balance is $1.1 million. The committed fund balance is $2.1 million. The assigned fund balance is roughly $600,000. And then the non-spendable fund balance is just over $1 million. So that's a total fund balance reserves of $7.5 million. Because the unassigned fund balance remains below the $4 million target, it requires 2/3 vote for budget amendments that are going to draw down that unassigned fund balance. Moving on to the cash balance, as of June 30th, it was $7.3 million. You'll see that that's below where we were this time last year, but comparable to where we were 2 years ago. And then below you have the cash and fund balances for the other funds. That is the actual cash. And then also want to make a note that we're closing the books. So the fund balance is pending year-end adjusting entries over the next 45 days. So those will likely change as of June 30th. If there aren't any questions, I'll be happy to move on to the budget amendments.
Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just point of clarification, since we're down one commissioner, is it still 11 votes to make that a?
It would be 2/3.
10.
Okay, 10,
Just on this one time?
correct. Thank you, Jane. Okay, so moving on to the budget amendments. Moving to Group 5 appropriations, non-school, presenting for your approval individually or as a group. These require commission approval by board vote, please.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Go to the board and vote, please.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm confused with what all we're voting on.
Okay. 5.
Group 5.
Okay. Go to the board and vote, please. Yes, motion passes.
Group 6, transfers, non-school. These are either major line items or payroll related, so they also require commission's approval by board vote, presenting individually or as a group.
Does this include item 6?
Yes, sir.
Why have that pulled out separate?
So do them individually then? There's just two. We're Group 6,
Group 6, Fund 118.
they're
and
items
Fund-
number 10 and 11. As a group or individually, I'm just make sure I'm keeping up.
This-
Okay,
As a
very
group?
good.
Okay, any questions? Oh, as a group, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Board vote, please, I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on a second.
Okay.
Commissioner Yeager, you have something to ask? Okay, hold on just a sec. The EMS ambulance, major line item 2974. What is that for? You know?
This was when, in going through the budget process, when we had, coming through the budget committee, Nathan didn't have the capital outlay note, the amount of interest and payment going into the now current fiscal year. We adjusted that when it was being brought to, well, going through the process when it came through the budget committee. When county commission took the action to go back to the budget that included the price or the rate increase, that version did not have this correction taken into account. So it's basically, this is the amount of, it's correcting on the account codes where we have the principal and interest based on the payments that need to be made in this current fiscal year.
Okay. All right, go to the board and vote, please. Yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Group 7 appropriations, general fund unassigned fund balance. These require commission's approval by board vote. Presenting for your approval individually or as a group, and require 10 votes.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
I wanted to clarify, that's because my understanding is we had one in there without a recommendation, although it's in here.
Oh, that's correct. I apologize for
Okay,
not, yes.
Yeah.
that's why.
So individually?
So do you want to pull out item number 6 and approve the rest as a group, or just all of them individually?
That would be fine. I would change the motion to pull out 6 because there was no recommendation and do the others.
Is that okay with commission?
Yes.
Okay. Pull 6. Vote on the rest as a group. All. Board vote. Go to the board and vote, please.
What are we voting on? We're voting on the
Just
rest.
all the rest, but we're not 6.
That's group 7.
Yes, sir. Yes, motion passes.
So presenting item number 6.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Any discussion on this?
Is there a motion for discussion?
I'll so move for discussion.
Motion and a second. Okay, Commissioner Meade,
Second.
go right ahead.
Okay, this is just a rehash of something we've already done in the past, and the mayor has pointed out that that she thinks there could be some legal issues with our reports, with some of our licenses. I've contacted Robert Parrish's office, who's the state stormwater coordinator for the state of Tennessee, and he sent me, and I got from his website a presentation that he did on these things. Basically, the stormwater control and the NTPBS licenses, it come into really two categories. There is an NPDES permit that we have from the federal government for our stormwater sewer system, okay? To make sure it's not mixed with other things, and there's requirements for us to comply with federal law when it comes to things that are being dumped or allowed to go into waterways and streams and those kind of things. And they're really to protect the environment overall. And I don't think anybody has any problem with the fact that those things are originally controlled by the state and federal government. The other part of that, though, is a requirement for the counties that have qualified, and Anderson County is one of those, along the city of Oak Ridge has had the same qualifications, to help the state regulate construction sites that are clearing an area of 1 acre or more. Okay, I'm not sure exactly how many of those we have in Anderson County, but the operators of those things are required to get permits, and the county sends an inspector to do those, to look at those, just to basically ensure that they're in compliance. The requirement for that inspector is that it be assigned by the mayor, that inspector, and that person have completed a less than 1 full day course that doesn't even have an exam, that shows them some details on this plastic fencing. I'm sure most of you have seen that at a construction site, which is designed when you do have heavy rain, it keeps things from just being washed off into a waterway or down a sewer, a flood sewer, not a sanitary sewer. And so, for instance, the city of Oak Ridge, the city manager, who acts like the mayor for most things in Oak Ridge, the Division of Public Works has a senior manager that is assigned the responsibility for stormwater management as a collateral duty. In the event that he's not available, there's another person on his staff that would stand in. No one I've talked to, both at the state and counties and other counties, feels that this merits a full-time position. Most people described it as a several days a month, full days,
and occasionally doing, checking on things to make sure that the compliance is being maintained. But I see simply no reason to have a $67,000 a year full-time position to make sure we cover this one thing that could be assigned as a collateral duty to the public safety director or anybody in Public Works, as long as they go take this one-day course so that they can be properly certified under the state and federal rules. So I'm against spending this money, and again, it takes 10 votes. I just can't believe that 2/3 of us feel that merits that. Now, someone does need to be assigned as the contact point. That can be done pretty simply. And we have another contractor that's already contracted to handle most of these issues and advise us. And so I don't see where we need to have a full-time employee. And so my recommendation is that we don't approve this.
Okay. Commissioner McCamey.
Why do we need 10 votes?
Requires 2/3 because it's taking money out of the unrestricted funds.
Because we're below the $4 million.
That's a 2/3.
Okay, so it's not a transfer then?
No.
No,
It's just
no, it's
appropriation.
out of
Okay.
undesignated funds.
Okay. Any other commissioner? Mayor? Oh,
I'll try not to take too long with this. Commissioner Mead is accurate or right in part regarding the permitting process. We do have to have someone on the permit side, that's the front end of the construction side. That reference was made a long time ago with regard to a one-day course. That is accurate, and that is what David actually does in the Office of Public Works. But Anderson County has an MS4 permit, and we are a jurisdiction that has requirements that we have to abide by, and that's what I wanted to make you aware of. I would have been happy to do this during the budget process, but as you know, I mean, it came up last minute at the budget, the final passage. For our permit, it is the principal executive's responsibility. That is me. This is the permit that we actually have. Anderson County has a resolution that identifies the stormwater coordinator in there. Part of that under the federal regulations is that we have to have a person or persons responsible for implementing and coordinating the system. And then I've got tons of papers over there. Probably the most important part, if you'll hold on one second. Is in correspondence with TDEC, if we have the person that is your permit only on the front end in terms of construction, we are not in compliance with our MS4 permit and the regulations. So we have to have that person to implement the program, to communicate with the program. The individual in my request is actually a lot lower because a month has passed. The salary is actually a $54,000 salary. It's not $67,000. The individual who was assigned this duty in the past was actually earning $84,000 a year. And in terms of, I would be happy to make a transfer or perhaps create a position there, but I significantly reduced the Office of Public Works by almost $200,000. And so there is a smaller staff in that office, and there isn't anywhere to make a transfer. So I just want to put you on notice that as a county, we do have a requirement to do this that is separate and individual from the permitting side of the construction process.
and Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. I would just like to remind the commissioners that $66,687, whether it's in the form of a paycheck or benefits, is approximately 1/4 of a fire truck. Thank you.
Okay. Everyone understand? Commissioner Warfield.
correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioners, but I thought if what Mayor Frank is talking about, we had one in the past, I thought that person served as Stormwater and Public Works Director at the same time. Is that true?
Only under the reorganization when Commissioner Owanski came in did he move at the latter part to the Director of Public Works after a certain individual who was the head was terminated. So he, for years, Anderson County has had the stormwater MS4 permit. We are one of the first in the state to have it. It was actually put in by Arcadis. Contractors that have worked on it have been Arcadis and Third Rock. Currently doing some of the measurements and things that are required in meeting the requirements of the state permit on behalf of Anderson County is Geoservices. And I just want to read from TDEC, implementation of the BMPs consistent with the SWMP and compliance with provisions of this permit, including the reporting, the monitoring requirements, constitutes compliance with the standard of reducing pollutants to the MEP. If Anderson County only has a construction site inspector, the county will be non-compliant with the Tennessee MS4 permit, with the 40 CFR, which is the federal regulation, and the Clean Water Act. And Anderson County has maintained, long before my tenure, a very good working relationship with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. And they are not going to look on Anderson County and understand whatever budgetary or political disagreements we have going on. They are going to say, how are you going to meet the requirements of your permit? And that's why I am here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Isbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to speak about Public Works. I think you've got a fairly new employee there that flies under the radar. But he's an excellent employee, and whoever made that hire made a good decision, and that's Danny Ray Phillips. I don't know if most people here know him, but whoever hired him did a great job. I know him well, so that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, let's go to the board and vote.
I have a question for the mayor.
Okay, yes, sir.
If this motion fails, do you have a backup plan?
No, sir, I do not. I don't have another individual who is qualified that has any experience there, so I cannot terminate someone who's currently performing their job duties in order to hire someone who might, on a part-time basis, have that experience. So
Who is qualified now?
Richard is qualified. This is his background. He actually worked,
Mr. Vera,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
that was the reason this item has been pulled out, maybe.
Yes.
Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned the permit. Whose
Yes, sir.
name's on it now?
Well, mine, and then Richard has been the stormwater coordinator, so he signs the monitoring reports that are submitted
So he's been doing it the last, how long?
since I've been here. The first thing when I came into office, Brian Jinks recommended Third Rock as the assist on filling out the monitoring report, and we did not use Third Rock. We just tried to handle that alone, and then we moved into using Geoservices.
Mr. Chairman, I think seems like we've contracted some services out of the zoning office. I think this is something we might want to look at. Could be cheaper, wouldn't be as much as a liability perhaps, I don't know. So, Commissioner Isabel mentioned a gentleman there, I've never met him. He could be qualified to do this. I'm not gonna support spending money out of the undesignated fund either. Seems like it's been being done, but, I'd be interested in seeing contracted services or this gentleman in zoning do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, are you familiar with the issue we had up on Lower End Road in Briceville with the water runoff problem up there?
I am not, perhaps, Richard, are you familiar with that? Is that something where someone would have contacted us?
Yes, ma'am.
Because he normally
I
will
think the gentleman's
respond.
last name was Cook.
Oh, yes, okay. That is,
Would that be an issue that the stormwater management would have been able to have assisted us with on that?
that.
I'm asking because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know on that particular one because I had spoken with the road superintendent on that particular one, and I think some of the issues that were caused there, he was indicating were caused because of excavation on the lower part of the road. But as far as stormwater, I mean, it's possible, and he could look at that.
Okay, but he hasn't
No.
yet?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions I have. I'm hearing that the state says we ought to have it, and I'm also hearing that the federal government says that we don't.
The thing from the state that I got from
Oh,
the state
sorry.
stormwater
Okay.
coordinator does not say we're required to have a contact point,
Okay,
just like Oak Ridge did.
okay. And the second thing, and
And
I'm.
we're required
I'm
to
sorry, I
do the
apologize.
initial inspections for a permit, okay, to make sure the permit is doing the things it's supposed to do. And we're required to go by from time to time to make sure they're not violating.
That they're in
those
compliance, okay. And I agree with Commissioner Wandell, it's, Arcadis was mentioned. I think we can contract this out a whole lot cheaper than we can at 66 or 54, whatever case may be. I think at this point in time, guys, we spend a lot of money. And we're going to start watching our pennies, not our dollars, but our pennies too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's go to the board and vote.
May I address one thing with
Let's
regard
go
to
to
the
the board and vote. We've already
contracted
talked this to
services?
death. Thank you. Let's go to the board and vote. Oh,
Wait.
need to clear mine. Clear the board.
Yes vote is to,
Yes vote is to accept the 66,000. No vote is not to accept it.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, 2 yes, 13 no. Motion fails. Okay.
And then finally, under Group 8, I passed out this evening an additional agenda item number 15 from 101 on behalf of the Health Department. This is an appropriation using restricted funds. It requires a 3/4 majority vote because it has not gone through the Budget Committee. We have already received these grant funds.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor? Is this appropriation?
The board, right?
It's an yes,
Okay, let's go to
appropriation
the
board
and
vote.
please. Fifteen yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the Purchasing Committee report, if there aren't any other questions for me, Catherine is now facilitating that committee, and I'd like to hand it off to her.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's only one action from the purchasing committee to approve tonight, and that is the lease with Hensley Holdings that Commissioner Wandell brought up earlier. It's for the lease for the trustees and the county clerk's offices, and the term is to be from August 13th, 2017 through August 13th, 2023.
Second?
Motion second. Any discussion? Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you. Catherine, I looked at that contract. I was trying to decipher, is it, the amount shown on there, is that for the whole period or is that a yearly rate?
It says $13,000 for a 6-year extension period. The total amount rent due at the beginning of each rent period. So, I'd say it's for each year. I'm not familiar with the property.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, we're talking 13,000 every year for that period, 6-year, 5-year period?
With no increases for the whole 6 years, and this is the same amount that we have had in place since 2013.
So the amount hasn't changed.
Correct.
Thank you for your clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Operations Committee report, including minutes by Chairman Isbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we have a motion made by Commissioner Alderson, seconded by Commissioner McCamey, and passed forward Resolution 17-07-643, Medicare reimbursements to ACMS to full commission for approval, and I so move.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Page 65.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. 2 noes. Motion passes.
Motion made by Commissioner McCamey, seconded by Commissioner Mead, and passed forward the policy supporting funding for cleanup of properties to full commission for approval. I so move.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This new resolution, or is this just for a specific property, or is this for all of Anderson County? All of Anderson County?
All of it? Yes.
All the ones that we find that we can clean up, that the court has, I'm sorry, step in. The court will give us a judgment order to clean up the property, raise the property, and what we're trying to do is actually go ahead and execute on those judgments. And this will give us the funding to go forward, like the Forte case. There's several more out there that have been lingering where I've got judgments on these people. We've never had the money to contract to clean them up. And so this will be a policy that we can utilize in the future to clean up some of these properties that have been out, blighted properties that have been out here in our community for years.
So if there's folks in my district that have called me time and time again about zoning not having the funding is what they've been told to clean up these properties, what you're telling me now is we have a procedure in place to address that.
Yes, sir. The mayor has proposed possibly utilizing some of the building permit funds that could offset the expenses. And what I would do in turn is if the county's out any money, I would put a lien on that property. So if there's any transfer or conveyance in the future, we get that lien satisfied and get our money back. But it is a long process. It's not quick, but that could be what they're alluding to.
So the process for someone that might want to inquire about a residence like this that's uninhabited, overgrown, they would call zoning first?
Zoning first. Zoning would take a look at it and see if there's a compliance issue. They feel there's a compliance issue. They issue a letter to the property owner requesting them cleaning it up, giving them their opportunity to exhaust their administrative appeals to the BZA. If that doesn't happen, then they send it to my office. I give them a chance to clean it up, give them an opportunity to put a corrective action plan in place. If they don't do that, then our last resort is a lawsuit.
What happens hypothetically if zoning doesn't take any action at all after the call?
It just sits there.
And then what's the recourse for the?
I need zoning to tell me it's out of compliance. And they have to sign an affidavit before I'll file that lawsuit.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hitchcock.
Mr. Yeager, I've got a question that's, has to do with the delinquent properties that we have. And I'm just wondering if there is or can be any connection. We've got the old gas station up on North Illinois in District 6 that fella keeps dumping big old chunks of concrete as he tears the building down, and the city fines him $50. And he brings another load and dumps it. So it's getting pretty good dumping privileges there, I guess. I don't know who it is, but I had citizens.
It's not the owner of the property.
We own the property.
Okay, it's part of the county's.
Yes, I'm just wondering if there's some kind of connection we can get in there
Yes,
that
sir.
we can
That's
put
it.
some teeth in it that the city can't.
Absolutely. If they, evidently, they know the perpetrator. I'll get that.
I
name
think
of the
they know him
perpetrator.
3 times.
Know him 3 times? Well, I hope they would refer that case to me, and they have the ability to fine them, I believe, up to $500.
Could you ask Mr. Krasinski about that particular, because there may be information I don't have.
Okay, I'll find out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, what dictates a property being condemned? I mean, there's a lot of people don't have anything.
It's-
Just uninhabitable?
Yes, whether, it's usually the structure is unsafe, it's falling in, roof's falling in, there's structural decay, things of those go into the equation or the analysis to
Well,
determine
if it's
whether.
habitable though, I've seen a lot of people living in
Well, that's-
places they shouldn't be living in, but they do. So
Well,
who
just
determines?
because somebody is living in it doesn't mean it's habitable.
I know, but who determines that? Who
That would be Mr. Crowley.
Mr. Crowley would? Okay, I didn't know.
the courts.
Yes,
Okay.
but
I didn't
Mr.
know.
Crowley would refer that case to us.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, on page 67, you'll see Resolution 17-07-645 in support of primary regulation of coal mining in Tennessee. Upon motion made by Commissioner Alderson, second by Commissioner Meade, and passed forward to full commission for approval, and I so move.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, Mr. Chairman, there's 3 in 1. It's EMS RFP. First is motion made by Commissioner Meade, second by Commissioner Emmett, passed to put these 3 items, RFP approval, selection of advisory committee, and selection of project manager on the county commission agenda for July 17, 2017 to take action on. The first one is the RFP approval, which you have in front of you is from Fitch and Associates, was the low bidder.
Second, we need to have discussion though. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. I think it would seem more fitting for us to request the 2 companies that have stepped forward to actually meet with this panel or the committee so that a field of questions can be asked to them as to why they feel they're best for the position itself. Just kind of throwing that out there. I'm getting a lot of nodding heads. Speak, please.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Meade?
Yeah, the thing on this is the bidding process happened, okay, but the actual pricing was withheld until this last Thursday. And so when it went before the Budget Committee, there couldn't be any recommendation as to which way to go, because you really can't do that till you know what people want to be paid for it. So what I'm asking is that now, could you just give your purchasing person would give just a summary, because there were 2 contractors that met the contact requirements based upon a grading system, and then they gave sealed bids, and those bids were then opened Thursday. And so, unless there's some, extenuating circumstances, you generally go with the lower bid. Okay, but it's still the best deal for the county. And so if you could describe the process a little, just briefly, and then tell us what the bids were and why you made the decision you did, or the recommendation.
Well, I haven't made any recommendation. The request for proposals, we received 2, and you have those in your agenda tonight. You also have an executive summary of each response that provides a high-level comparison of the responses. And in order to create that summary, I also contacted both vendors for supplementary information, and those emails are included in your agenda tonight. Fitch and Associates came in a lot lower than Washco. That happens sometimes. That's why we do solicitations. This past week, we had a solicitation just to resurface the health department parking lot, and one bid came in at 80,000. Or, I'm sorry, it was 50,000 and one bid came in at 80,000. Sometimes one vendor can do the job cheaper because of their resources. Sometimes one vendor just really wants to work more. I'm not sure if you have more specific questions about the responses.
Based upon my review, okay, but I'm not an expert on purchasing stuff by any means, it appears that the lower bidder, there's no reason to suspect they're not going to do a not just adequate, but a good job as the higher bidder.
I agree that they both seem qualified.
Yeah.
But the RFP did state that the county commission would select the vendor.
Yeah.
Commissioner Yeager.
Thank you. I called it one of the references of Washco, but since we got the numbers so late, I didn't realize they were going to be so wide, so I didn't call any from Fitch. Did anybody call Fitch for references?
I contacted 3 references from each.
Okay.
And I received back 1 reference from each, and those are also included in
Oh,
your
are they?
agenda
Okay.
tonight.
Okay, thanks.
And they both received positive
Yeah, mine was too,
references.
for Washco.
Guess I'll make a motion to accept the low bid.
Here it is.
You already made.
You got a motion and a second.
Motion and a second. Okay, motion is to accept the low bid. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion, 1 no. Motion passes. Do you want it to go to the board?
I just know if it did or
It's an appropriation.
significant amount of money. but
It's no appropriation. Okay.
Okay, next we have the Selection Advisory Committee. And in front of you, you've got a list with 12 names on it. So it'll be up to this committee to decide how to do this. Is either do it in vote form, like we do sometimes, to check, or send it to nominating committee.
I make a motion, we send it to nominating committee and let them present themselves before, and the nominating committee make a recommendation on the 5 back to this committee.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Fritz.
I'd just like to make a general statement is that if, after looking at this list, if we want this to be a true, independent audit, and let it be something that's going to have, be worthwhile, then I don't think no commissioner needs to serve on it. It needs to be someone totally from the outside come in here and do this. That way we have an unbiased assessment of this audit. That way then we can then look at it what people on the outside are saying instead of us looking at it, because we already have our opinions, one way or the other, of what we think, and we don't need that. We want someone on the outside come in here with an unbiased, not knowing anything about it, to do an independent assessment of this operation and let us know what's going on. And that way we have a true picture of what's happening. Are they, that way we know, are they doing everything right, or are there problems? I mean, that way we don't go in there with blinders on and or predetermined problems and stuff. Let's have a true assessment, independent assessment.
Okay. Commissioner Hitchcock.
Thank you. Two things, one practical, one philosophical. Practical, unique. Are we gonna set a number, or are we gonna leave it open to whatever we get? If we're gonna set a number that probably should be transmitted to the nominating committee prior to their meeting. Did it say 5? Okay, I missed it. It must have been small print. The other part is, I got bad eyes. The other part is, I agree with Commissioner Fritz, but it's this really difficult conundrum. You want somebody who's familiar with the business, but doesn't have a vested interest in it. And I know the speakers that were here the other day were very passionate and affected some of us greatly. But that's not what we need on the audit committee. And the commissioners, we've been dealing with this a long time, and we may have a lot of energy associated with it, but not the kind of understanding you need to evaluate it. We're just looking at bottom line. You know, is it being managed right? But so, if you go that route, you're gonna have to pay for it. If you want something free, you're gonna get about what you pay for. So, and we'll pay in the long run, on the back end, if we keep it all in-house with people who are knowledgeable there, without getting somebody who's done that sort of thing before. So you might want to think about that before we jump in appointing people, or get people on the advisory board who can I don't know. I just think we got to think about it. We're gonna have to do some recruiting. I don't see a lot I really want to have. We can put them on, but we want some other people too. So you have a mix. You know, people with a vested interest, but also people who know the operation.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I was just talking to the vice chair about, you could check the 5 that you want to turn them into. Chairman Alderson is the chairman of the nominating committee, just for reference, just something for them to go by, something for them to consider. That's just a thought. So, Commissioner Yeager.
Sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes, I just want to make sure it was understood that this audit advisory committee, the folks on it need to be identified before we can go forward with the contract. So I'm not sure when the nominating committee is, but that might delay the process.
Curve on it.
I have a question. They don't have any role until there's a draft submitted. So why is it necessary for the contract bid acceptance?
But they might have a role in, Jay, do you have anything you want to say about the audit advisory committees?
Yeah, the project manager has the ongoing day-to-day oversight.
We don't have any money on this, right? We
No.
still haven't sent it to budget. It looks like we're talking about another month here. I'm sorry, and I don't want to see a delay in this. We've been waiting for it for a year, but we're looking at an issue of the selection of the advisory committee. We're looking at the budgetary issue, and we can't take up either one of those issues until the next county commission meeting. I'd like to knock out the project manager tonight and knock that off our list, because I think we've got a good one here in-house. But the other issues, we just can't make those decisions tonight, unfortunately. We're going to be looking at August.
Okay.
Commissioner Yeager.
Is the number of 5 a recommendation, or was that ever voted on?
No, that was just a recommendation.
That doesn't feel large enough to me personally.
Well, wasn't it in the RFP?
I don't believe we define it.
In the RFP.
I was thinking it was.
Public meeting, everybody has that.
I'll just make a motion, it can be denied, but, to make the number 7 instead of 5.
Yeah, hang on just a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we go through with that, you understand, when we put out an RFP, in a sense, it's an implicit contract. We need to stay to the terms of it. It's very critical in these type situations. If if we expand or make any material changes to that RFP after the fact, we may have problems. So let Catherine go through and make sure that 5 is not spelled out. If 5 is spelled out as the composition of the advisory board, we need to stick with it.
It is not spelled out.
Okay. Then go ahead, sir, with your motion.
Okay.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to refer to nominating committee.
The size. I'll just throw 7. I mean, it can be, I think 5, I'll just change it. No, I'll go with 7. I would like to have the size of the board to be 7.
I seconded that.
So we have a motion on the floor already.
Is that a motion to amend?
Motion to amend.
If you're sending it to nominating committee, this is just me, you might want to see what nominating committee comes back with. They may, by just the process of elimination, or recommendation, come up with a different method. You don't want to pigeonhole into something that reduces their flexibility. They may have a situation where they have people not willing to serve if they're on that list.
Well, I think since we were going on a basis of 5, then we could change it to an undetermined number, but with a minimum 5, with at least 5. Is that possible?
Give nominating committee some flexibility.
Yeah. Okay, then I will amend my motion to a recommendation to nominating committee for a minimum of 5 members of this advisory.
Okay, let's vote on the motion first to send it to nomination. To send it, to send all 12 names to nomination. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now to vote on the amendment to not less than 5? Is that what you wanted to say?
Sure, I'll do that too. I would like to send a recommendation to nominating to the composition size of the board to a minimum of 5 and use their discretion on maximum by who they deem as suitable as members of this committee.
Okay with you? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Mead, do you want to say anything?
We're done.
Okay. Commissioner Warfield, we're good? Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. Just real quick, the 12 names that are on there, that's it. I mean, no 10 more can come in saying, well, I thought about it too. I mean, is this now cut off for,
I don't know.
The motion was for the 12 names.
so
I think
there's
it's
no
cut off.
more applications? Thank you.
Commissioner Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we've already voted on sending it to the nominating committee, and I'm gonna try to make that meeting. I apologize for not being at operations. I had some family issues going on. I was gonna speak to it at this point. If I'm out of order, gavel me down, Mr. Chairman. I understand Commissioner Fritz's concern, and if I'm comparing apples to oranges here, somebody please correct me, but I remember a few years ago when our jail was overcrowded, and Chief Johnson, Chief Lucas, the sheriff came up, addressed the problem with commission, and they wanted a study done. I'm going to try to compare it to this a little bit. And if I recall correctly, we created a jail advisory committee at that point. I believe Commissioner Alderson chaired it, as a matter of fact. There were commissioners on that committee who knew nothing about operating a jail, but they listened to the people who did know, and they put those thoughts and those ideas together, and then they made the recommendation to the full commission. I'm assuming that's sort of the same direction that we're wanting to go in with this. This advisory committee that we're thinking about forming here isn't going to be doing the heavy lifting. We're hiring a group to do that, but they're just going to be reporting to the advisory committee their findings. Am I right on that? Am I on track with that? Exactly, that's going to be there as well.
The liaison between this group and the vendor.
Right, and if I'm off base with that comparison, then somebody please explain it to me, but that was my general understanding of this, and I would be proud to serve on that committee. Thank you.
Commissioner Alderson.
Yeah, I'm 3 or 4 questions here because we don't, you know, we're going right back to square one, sort of like the last meeting. Are we gonna advertise this and there be a deadline before the nominating committee? Or is this the 12 as the motion set forward? And have we actually confirmed that all these 12 names will serve?
They're all willing to serve.
So, I guess what comes before me, and like Commissioner Val said, you know, we're at odds. Are we just gonna pick any of the 12 or the top 5, 7 vote getters and go on from there? I mean, technically, you're leaving the nominating committee in a bind. I mean, I'm sitting here and, you know, put all 12 of them on, as far as that goes. I mean, really. You
That's a
know,
good point.
What are you discussing? What are you doing? You're having an audit committee do the service. I know some have complained that the advisory committee on the ambulance service don't have nothing to do with it or shouldn't. Well, that's where the system should go back to, but that's just my thought. But what are you gonna do with it?
Right now, it's going to nominate.
Have we found out yet whether or not 5 is the number in the RFP?
It is not.
It's not, it doesn't say
It
we
does
have
not
5.
identify the number.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, Commissioner Isbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I've got is, let's say that we decide to choose all 12. Who would be chairman of that? The project manager? Or would that advisory board have to pick a chairman?
Pick a chairman.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Warfield.
I'm kind of like, pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm kind of like Commissioner Val. I think there's need to be more commissioners on there. It ultimately is coming back to us, correct? So why not have more people on? If Chuck is on it and he misses something, I may catch it, and vice versa. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that this committee consists of the 12 that is listed on this page.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Commissioner Fritz?
I just have a problem with it, because just sitting throughout the whole budget committee and a lot of things dealing with the EMS and everything like that, I've heard many comments and so many statements come about where there was so much vindictive and stuff, so much things against the EMS. And I'm not gonna name names and things of that nature, but there are so many people and commissioners, I'll just say commissioners, that are against the operation of the EMS, that they're starting out on a bad thing. And this whole purpose of spending this money for this operational audit is to find out an independent assessment to tell us what is wrong, if there's anything wrong. And we're not getting that. And I've heard so much stuff, and I could tell you instances, but I'm not gonna go there. But we want a fair, independent assessment, and we're not gonna get that.
I thought that's what the RFP was. I thought we was going to, apparently, it's the low bidder, sorry.
Let's stay in order, though. Let's hold on just a
I
minute.
apologize.
Yes, sir.
I didn't see that.
Push a button. Push that little clicker.
I'm not sure if I want to.
So
Come
we'll
here.
have to withdraw this motion.
Yes. Let's finish with who's on the board right now. Commissioner
Okay.
Meade.
Let's keep in mind, this committee is not gonna write the assessment. This committee simply is gonna look at the assessment draft that's provided by our contractor and ask some questions to see if it sounds like what their assessment says makes sense. Call in some people that are experts in the area where there's a concern. And then when they're all done, they're gonna make recommendations to the commission to accept the report. So we are getting an absolutely independent thing that is gonna be subject to some review before it comes back to the full commission. And these people come across a wide background of experience. I think being a commissioner should not be disqualified. And I'm not even on the list.
Commissioner Warfield.
I agree with Commissioner Mead. I go back to my motion. We just put all 12 on there and let's move forward. This has
Okay.
been a long time coming.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
One no, motion passes. Okay. Okay.
Motion is second to withdraw.
Got a motion?
I'd like to withdraw my two motions, referring these items to the nominating committee.
Commissioner Scott?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The first one to send it to nominating committee. Have a motion to, your motion to begin with, send it to nominating?
The motion that was just passed automatically did away with that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anything else?
Yes. I'll go ahead and read the individuals that had just been selected. Ricky Rose, Jerry White, Phil Warfield, Shane Val, Stephen Newby, Chief Curley, Teresa Scott, Myron Owanski, Stephanie Fox, Jody Turner, Dale Isabel, David Anderson Sr. Next, Mr. Chairman, we had upon motion by Commissioner Alderson, second by Commissioner Wandale, and passed forward to full commission recommendation of Randy Waters as project manager. And I so move.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Erb?
Just as a point of clarification, since this contract is not gonna cross fiscal years, it's not gonna require going to the purchasing committee. If we're all on board with going with the lowest bidder, would we wanna do a board vote to appropriate the funds from unassigned fund balance tonight with an amount not to exceed $43,900, so it doesn't have to delay by going through the process to go to budget committee just to come back next month to full commission?
Okay, motion second. Any discussion on it? All, go to the board and vote, please.
And we'll need 11, since it hasn't gone through the full process.
11 or 10?
14 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
We got it. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is the Glen Alpine Convenience Center be put on county commission agenda for July 17, 2017 meeting for discussion.
Commissioner Meredith? Oh, Commissioner Meredith?
Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
After several months of negotiating, looking some more, there are no sites, to my knowledge, to move the convenience center. However, there could be one other one, but I do not know if this time we could move forward with that. I personally think, talking with the leaders at the city of Clinton, that we just move forward with some type of improvement of the current site. Probably goes against our retail efforts that we're trying to do along the boulevard. However, I think Commissioner Alderson, I was provided a picture of the one on Baxter Avenue in Knoxville, which is like a Butler building, which you drive in, drive out. It can actually be enclosed. I just do not know if the site's big enough. I do think, though, that using MBI with Chuck, that Commissioner McCamey already got a drawing kind of started. We take that drawing to scale and we see if we can actually do an enclosed facility that will look really nice. I don't think it would cost anything to, other than time, to look at that one. Have MBI look at it. We know what our budget is. It's in the line item. We move forward and see what we can come up with.
Okay, one of the things I'd like to caution about that building, I've seen those types of facilities, but sometimes a big building in that area might look unsightly.
Oh, I agree.
Versus the vegetation around it and the landscaping and all that, so whichever looks best.
Well, we've got the other option. It's Commissioner, that drawing that we first had. So
You're right.
I don't know about the ingress egress side on the highway. We would have to check more with TDOT on that.
We've
in the
already got
schools.
permission from TDOT.
I realize that, but it's gonna really create a traffic problem with the
Yeah.
vocational school. In talking with, and Dr. Parrott and Joe Fogarty and some others, just at school time. But that's something we can work out. At least we've got the drawing to work off of. And you're right, Chairman, if this doesn't work, we can always make it look good from the
Right.
outside, so.
Okay.
I really not like to make a motion. I think just we all just keep working together and let MBI work on this. Unless you just want a motion. I just hate keep putting time limits on until we have something in front of us.
Okay.
But it's a continued effort in our district. Commissioner Alderson and I, we hear it. So we have to keep in mind, we do have to, we do have an MOU with the city of Clinton. So we want to make sure that we still hold hands with them, and talking with them, they're ready to move on too.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Warfield.
I'll go back to what I've said before. I'm not for leaving it there for the simple fact of safety. I will guarantee you someone's gonna get killed. They're gonna bring it out there at the vocational school, and you know how people are. Guys, that's a raceway up through there. I will vote no on this to leave it there. Somebody's gonna say, I can make it, and they're gonna get T-boned. So for those reasons, safety to the public, to leave it there, and I understand Commissioner Meredith, I appreciate everything that you've done in working with these other sites that we've discussed, but I just, from bottom of my heart, I can't go on voting on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner McCamey.
Mr. Chairman, the Solid Waste Advisory Board has asked to go ahead and put this out for bid. We've got an estimate from the architect that drew the plans. We would like to go ahead and put it out for bid and get a concrete figure. And at the same time, we can look at it enclosed, have that as a separate bid to enclose it inside of a buffer building. But, we need to move on this if we're gonna stay there and try to get this completed before winter. So I'd like to go ahead and get permission to go ahead and put it out for bid, and we'll have some firm numbers then, and we can look at that at the same time, just have it totally enclosed as a separate bid.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Commissioner Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have questions about this, and it's not the commission's fault that I don't know the answers to them, and I don't want to take up any more time here tonight on the issue. I would like to appear at a committee meeting, though, to take these items up to where I can ask those questions. Would it be solid waste or back to operations? Solid
Advisory
waste.
Board, I guess.
Okay. You know the next scheduled meeting on that off the top of your head, Robert?
I think we're gonna meet in August. If we put this out for bid, we hope to, we've got everything ready to go, put it out for bid. We would have at our, be the second Tuesday in August.
Okay.
And we would have the bids back at that time.
But that would be if Michael Brady could get the drawings, and you got,
Yeah, we've already got the drawings.
as far as the building?
But the building would just
I
be.
know we had the drawings of what we looked
Yeah.
at before, but not with the building on it.
But we'd like to go ahead and bid without the building. And
Oh,
then
okay.
have that as a separate bid to go ahead and put that out for bid also to enclose it, which I don't think there'd be much, much work to do there.
Okay. Had a motion and second. Commissioner Mead.
I just want to point out that doing the modifications and the building, they may not require the same contract, but they need to be coordinated. Because the building structure might require that a piece of the equipment or something that's there not be in that position because it requires a supporting member for the building or something. So I think at least it needs to be, the question needs to be asked, would there be any problem with this design of having it enclosed? But getting bids just gives us what our options are, and we know what it's gonna cost.
Right.
So I'm in favor of moving ahead with getting the bid. we're not spending any money at that point. But we are getting the options, and it's easier to make decisions when you know what it costs.
Commissioner Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Mr. Lee. I'm all for this, Commissioner McCamey. I totally agree, but I agree with Commissioner Warfield. I really think that ingress egress piece coming back on the highway is going to be an issue with schools. I really do. Outside of that, I'm all good. We just need to figure out another way or a right turn only or something, not cutting across that median. It'll be a disaster. I know our good friends at TDOT can approve things, but sometimes it's common sense, especially when school's in. There has to be a way. It may be a right turn only, maybe you can't cross, but I think if we could work that piece out, it would be good, just that one part. As far as the design of the building, you're right. If you're gonna bid something, you're gonna spend less dollars bidding it once. You just need to bid the whole thing, just take the lid off of it. So if it's ready for the building, just don't put the top on. I think the configuration is gonna be important when you bid it.
One of the items about the ingress egress was a joint easement with the property that the Hicks Group has there. They had requested that, so it would give them access to their property
Right.
from the main road there instead of having to come, you know. But they had agreed to actually do a joint easement. Half of it would be their property and half of it the county's property. And that was, that's what they had requested.
Well, again,
But we can look at it with a one-way
outside of
just coming
that,
out.
we're all good. I just really think that really needs to be looked at very carefully.
I mean, during the schools, when they're letting in and out, that traffic is at 15 mile an hour, 20 mile an hour.
We're-
Whatever they can get by with legally.
I start.
But I mean, there's a flashing sign that says 20 or 25 miles per hour, so I don't
think it's
see that.
going directly straight across 3 lanes of traffic and turning left would be what my fear would be. Just cutting straight across and turning back toward Clinton. Just a concern.
We
just
can look
need
at both of them.
I'm not an expert on it, but I think that needs to really be vetted out.
Commissioner Warfield.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I agree. To me, the safety is the thing. Even if you let them go across, keep in mind, if you look at the driver's manuals, when you turn in, you're supposed to go to the right. How many people go to the left? And you're gonna have confusion. They're really all over the place. I agree with Commissioner Emmert. I don't like the idea of having a building up there. I know some of the businesses have said we'll build there if the convenience center's not there. Well, maybe if we can work out the safety thing, right turn only, might be more copacetic on that idea. But maybe we get it looking right and safety is good, maybe we'll have people build there anyway. That's, it is a great location.
Commissioner Creasy.
I just want to make a comment, and I went by the rules and pushed the button. But I think Robert had a drawing years ago that had a right turn only.
Right.
And no left turns from exiting. And I think if we stick with that, I think we'll be safe. I can vote for that.
Commissioner Isbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had the opportunity to work on a similar project like this over in North Carolina. And what we actually did there is we enclosed it, but we also used the natural lay of the land to have a double decker. Okay, you had one for recyclables, one for garbage. And instead of going out onto the main road, what they actually did is they widened like what we would do there on 61. So your egress is actually off 61. And anytime when you go up, you're not requiring as much land. Of course, it's going to be expensive, but I agree with not entering onto Highway 61. But I'd be happy to work with the committee there to just give some diagrams of what we've done before. Thank you.
You done? Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Old business, we had,
Oh,
Yeah.
We gotta, yeah, send out to bid without, well, you wanting to do it with the building? Okay.
What we've presented to commission before and has been approved, we'd like to go ahead and bid that, and that'll give us some firm figures then on what we've got. Then do the building as a separate bid. It'll probably take them a couple of weeks to get that drawn up, but go ahead and put that out for bid also. It's not gonna cost us
Okay.
except for the architectural fees.
All right.
And then we can compare the two.
Commissioner White?
If this motion passes, I'd like for the law director to notify the city of Clinton that we are proceeding with this and keep them informed as to what we're doing at the time schedule and everything.
Okay. All right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Old business, we had a motion by Commissioner Alderson, seconded by Commissioner McCamey, and passed forward to full commission. Emergency purchase of new copter for the commission office to replace the present copter that is broken and replacement parts are no longer available.
Okay, hold on just a second. Pardon me, Chair. Ms. Pruitt advised us to defer this to purchasing because now we might be thinking on leasing this instead of purchasing it, because several of the other department heads are leasing theirs. So she would like, is that what you'd still like to have done?
Second.
Okay. A motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. There you go. Thank you, Commissioner McCamey.
Are we gonna wait another month before we get a copier in there?
Don't have to.
Can't get one on lease without it going to purchasing first.
They haven't leased any,
If we have a supermajority vote, can't we bypass
it's,
or purchase?
on a lease, wouldn't the state already have a bid on that we could piggyback off of? Or some other county, Knox County? Or even, have we bid them in the past for Anderson County?
Ms. Erb?
If we were able to go off of a statewide contract, a lease is gonna be a multi-year commitment, so that's why it has to come, I was telling Annette it needs to go through the process. So the accounting office has such a lease on a statewide contract for $175 a month. So if you wanted to do something along those lines, then yes,
Yeah, that's what I
suppose
was
with the-
thinking, if we just do it on the piggyback off the state contract.
Do you have the funding as well, or is that also an issue? Also the issue?
Yeah,
Okay.
but we already mentioned, what, $10,000, wasn't it? I mean, basically, that was a recommendation, is to go up to $10,000, because she had gotten some quotes on it already. So if it's just gonna be on a lease of, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500, 3,000 a year,
What were the numbers?
For 5 years. It's $99 a month for 5 years. And over that period, the total would be $5,940. That's for the lease.
Do you know if that's a statewide contract, though?
I
That's
don't know.
just,
That was just
not
a
knowing if it's
proposal.
a statewide contract, it really needs to go through legal review as to form and,
well, the reason I'm asking the question is we basically talked about approximately $10,000 and appropriating that tonight, if you purchased it, but it appears that the lease is gonna be less per year than the 10,000. So I would make a motion, we go ahead and piggyback off the contract that we have in the accounting office, whatever that is, or a state contract. Go ahead and purchase it and on the lease purchase, not to exceed $10,000. Because we're gonna be another month without a copy machine in our office there.
She's the one who has to deal with it.
I know, she's having to run all over the courthouse to do that, and then I can't get a hold of her when I need her. So she's in you know, somebody else's office making copies.
Is that a motion?
As, I so move.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Board vote,
Board vote, go to the board and vote.
has to be 11 votes.
Hmm.
Two absent.
Can we push Fritz abstain? Okay.
And Creasy.
No, Commissioner Creasy will be right back, but
Yeah.
Commissioner Fritz is away.
Do a roll call vote in that?
It's not giving us the option to mark him.
Just do roll call.
We can either proceed with a vote, if we can, Fritz is not gonna be part of it, but at this point, I can't reverse.
Just do a roll call vote.
Do a roll call vote. Yeah, somebody could abstain.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Larry.
Just vote for it.
I'll put abstain, it doesn't change the number of yes votes.
Okay.
Mark the sheet.
Go to the board and vote, please.
All right, let's do it. There we go.
They did? It's to Lisa Collier. County Commissioner.
Okay, 13 yes, 1 no. Motion passes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more piece of business, and it's an announcement, and I'm going to yield to Commissioner Wandell to do that. We recognize T-Dot.
Oh, well, that was just for information. I'd just like to thank TDOT, Mayor, and, for all they did on, the work over in Claxton, and they also did some stuff over in South Clinton on the main road there, and, just want to say thank you to TDOT. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes the Operations Committee report. Thank you.
Road Committee report. Chairman Alston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick. Commissioner Fritz made a motion to pass the speed limit for Rock House Lane. Commissioner Isabel second, and I so move.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Commissioner Isabel made a motion to pass the speed limit for our Spinnaker Drive, and Commissioner Fritz second, and I so move.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Old business. Director of Senior Center and Office on Aging, salary increase deferred from June County Commission meeting.
That actually was referred to the Operations and Budget Committee in June, and we didn't get that, but the motion was made to refer it to Operations and Budget after we receive a salary survey. And I'm working on the salary survey and,
Refer it to next.
so just put that on the Operations and Budget Committee for August.
Motion.
Yes, that's a motion.
Motion to put it on operations and budget. in August. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, new business. Commissioner Warfield.
Thank you, sir. Before I make this motion, I know it'll have to be referred over to the Operations Committee, so just FYI. Last meeting, Commissioner Wandell kind of had the idea, and I wanted to go one step further. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Director of EMS provide County Commission for this fiscal year detailed monthly reports of expenditure and revenues. I'll make that motion, then I'll clarify what detailed means.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Motion second, okay.
Okay, what I mean by detailed is not just a code, not just code 103 or 506 or whatever case may be. I mean detailed as in, we spent $453 on polos. That detailed. We spent X amount on tires. We spent X amount on fuels. Guys, and I agree with Commissioner Mead, we do not need to be micromanaging. However, over $1 million in the hole, I think we need to start micromanaging. It is past time to micromanage. We need to see if we've had to give them $1 million in the last couple years, there's something wrong. And I know we're having an audit, but I think that if I'm getting short on money, I'm gonna have to be looking on we've all got a budget to follow monthly. And I think EMS needs to be following their budget. And I don't know what's going on. That's what the audit will tell us, but we need to know monthly what their expenditures are, what their revenues are.
Okay, and this is to go to operations?
Yeah, this is to go to operations, yes, sir.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? One no, motion passes. Any other new business? Yes, sir.
Let me get my glasses on. We've been talking about Ms. Phillips's salary. I have got the comparison from the HR director. And I guess I assumed that everybody had it. Everybody does? I'm sorry.
You're correct.
So if I don't understand why well, maybe we need to put it back in the budget. So, but I guess I thought everybody had this survey.
That survey lacked a lot.
Lacked a lot.
There's a lot of questions about that survey. One of them says it has 3,000 members or something, and those are actual members who contribute. When I check with that county, it's members who actually pay on a monthly basis and contribute to the senior center. But they serve more than 3,000 people. And a lot of that
This is a good starting point.
a lot of that goes with population, but it's not senior population. There's a difference in senior population and population.
Well, senior center and office on aging combined, on every one of them, senior center and office on aging combined,
Yeah, all those show as being combined, and they're not combined. They have separate directors on them.
well, I think this would be a good starting point.
It is, and I've got that, but I'm doing a more in-depth, having one that's more in-depth and will actually show quite a bit more than that.
Is that something you'll be getting to Mr. Bearden in
Yeah,
HR?
We'll present it at operations and
Okay.
budget.
Okay, all right. Well, the last one. Motion to adjourn.